All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me check my audio levels. Let me see how I'm sounding. Real quick like. Hit them with the real quick like. Oh, it sounds like I'm coming through smooth. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lunch with Steel, Breakfast with Steel, whatever time that you ended up tuning into this. Haven't done a couple of episodes for Lunch with Steel. This week has been kind of interesting for me. Welcome to Live Split Screen 1. If you're tuning in here, I am one of your hosts, Steel Rain. Live Split Screen, we usually go live every Saturday morning. It's a gaming conversationalist podcast where we talk about all things happening within the gaming industry. And what better way to get into something that has been a hot topic? I know it's something that me and Pong have talked about, especially when the crew first announced that they were essentially taking the game down. But this is something that me and Pong have kind of always discussed, kind of off and on, talking about, hey, whether it's a multiplayer game or a single player game, there has to be a way to allow players to truly own the digital content that they have in their library, right? This is going to be an ongoing conversation. I'm not saying that I got all the answers. Matter of fact, this is going to be an opportunity for me, just because this is something that I do feel strongly about, and I do think that it does need to be put out there more so than anything. Now, this is just something that is happening in the EU, right, in the European region, so we don't have any direct access to it. So, like, as you can see here, and I'm going to get into the details of it, when you go to sign the petition, these are the countries that are available for you to sign that said petition. Again, to each their own. If you're in one of these areas, I do definitely suggest that you go out and sign this petition, man. And again, I will get into the details of it, but I was wanting to again inform myself a little bit more, getting into some show prep for Saturday, and said, you know what? If I'm already going to be doing this, I was going to get some game in and whatnot. I said, you know what? Let me truly tune into some important pieces, see what else we can listen to. It's gonna be commentary over everything. We're gonna watch a few different videos. I'm going to include those videos in the description below as well, in case you want to have direct access to those. So hey, if there's any time that there's a pause or anything like that within the content, you know why. Again, if you're not familiar with me, I'm your guy, Steel Rain. That T is a 7 everywhere. And again, Living Split Screen is the channel. Also have my own personal channel, so you can type that into Google if you would like, Steel Rain. That T is a 7, and you'll find all the information there. Hopefully we can get some a little bit of maybe a clip or two out of this. I'm gonna try to record some things on my back end, test some things with OBS because I've made some additional changes, and we'll go from there. But again, wanting to get into this because I do not have all the information about this scenario, right? Stop killing games. I get the initial premise. I get that it is now branched out to some of the more popular YouTubers. What up, Mass? I see you in the chat. I see that it is kind of branched out. Pirate Software is kind of getting a lot of the brunt of it. I don't necessarily agree 100% about why people are attacking him about it. I understand that there is a loss of concept on one end, or maybe just something lost in translation. But I think this is something interesting to talk about because again, me and Pong, as I mentioned earlier, have always kind of discussed the digital about ownership of our game. So it's going to be interesting to see where this kind of takes us. This is going to be, again, commentary more so than anything. This is going to be kind of a branch off of my Lunch with Steel series or breakfast, dinner, whenever you end up tuning into this. So keep that in mind. Rescue, what's going on, baby? How you feeling? So, but again, I was wanting to watch this content. I said, you know what? Let me do something live for Living Split Screen. Let's see what happens from there. But if you're not familiar with Stop Killing Games and this whole initiative, again, this is something that is in the EU. And Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games. And an increasing number of video games are sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support from the publisher ends. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence Hopefully I said that right. And is not detrimental to customers, but makes preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. Over the past year, we have successfully escalated complaints on this problem to consumer agencies in France, Germany, Australia, and have brought forth petitions for new law on this problem to various countries. A list of the actions taken to date can be viewed here. And we click on that, you can kind of get an idea of some of the things that they have already done. Launched a European Citizens Initiative to introduce a new law. They try to start doing that. That's still ongoing. Work with a member of European Parliament and the support of MEP Patrick Breyer to submit questions. Again, you see that there has been some active engagement in here. And in USA, submitted complaints to the FTC on the game The Crew. No response, but this was expected. So you kind of see how things have been kind of been going. They've been trying to get at this for a little bit of time here. As of 2025, most consumer action on this matter has concluded, and we are awaiting decisions on it from several governments. However, there are a few remaining avenues left where people can participate if they are eligible. European Citizens Initiative. This is the most powerful option at our disposal, but it requires a massive number of signatures from citizens of EU countries in order to pass. If we can pass the signature threshold, there's a very strong chance that the European Commission will pass a new law that both protect consumer rights to retain video games that they have purchased and advance preservation efforts massively. Now, surface level. For me, I do think as a consumer that when I purchase your product, whatever the software may be, that unless I'm told otherwise, and I know there's EULAs and all this other information that they want to sneak underneath you and be like, oh, well, you accepted to these terms and you know that you're getting the license. And it's like, dog, come on, what are we doing? Most people do not read through that stuff, and most people should not need a lawyer to consume their form of entertainment. A lot of that stuff is put in place to protect the company itself, and I am the last thing. I am so far away from being a company shill, right? There are companies that I may like because of some of their practices, i.e. like Microsoft, for an example. I like my experiences that I've had with Windows. I like my experience that I've had with Xbox, but I also acknowledge that they have some major flaws. The same with any company, Apple, Sony, Android, Google, the list goes on and on. There's a slew of things that you should have issue with. And I think two things can be true. There's always that gray area. What up, Sin? How you feeling, baby? He said, howdy, folks and fellow graybeards. Hey, I got a little, where is it at? I got a little bit coming in. I got a little bit trying to join the crew. But this is always and should be an ongoing conversation because, again, I am somebody that also believes, if you've listened to Living Split Screen over the last few years, that we as consumers in this form of entertainment still have enough sway and enough power to make mountains move if we choose to make things happen, right? So in petitions like this, it's very unfortunate. Again, and there is something also to be said about this kind of being pushed under the rug. Not very many people covering it, although there are huge bases, again, YouTubers, Twitch, all over the place of people who have covered such and not seeing enough people take action. Okay. Now, does this end up kind of falling into the side of, well, people just don't care? And that very well may be a thing. You know what I mean? A lot of people do not care until it is something that reflects on them negatively or impacts them personally. Is what it is on that. But enough of my yapping. Let's get into and find out more about what Stop Killing Games truly is about. Maybe we'll come up with our own kind of decision. But again, I'm always going to stand behind the side of the consumer and us figuring out ways, especially for the digital future. The only truly way, for an example, that I could stand behind Xbox if they're going to continue to push this path of giving us access to our digital library, you delivering more games to me on a digital standpoint, and me justifying my purchases for the future is if we have digital ownership, right? So think it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be fun to get into. Again, this is something I was going to consume regardless, but I said, you know what? I got some things that I'd like to say. I was watching. I only watched about 4 or 5 minutes of the this video. It's almost an hour long. So if you're not here for that, I hear you. Living split screen. We typically do longer form content anyway. And since I got a free morning, I think it's time to get into some stuff and just intake some information. As I knock everything down. Jesse James was popping, baby. Appreciate you coming through. But let's get into it. This is from Accursed Farms. This is one of the guys who's kind of been the, I would say, leader behind all of this, right? Hopefully I'm sounding good. Everything is coming through clean for you guys. Again, this video is about an hour long. Accursed Farms. The video is titled "The End of Stop Killing Games," because I do believe the initiative is coming to a halt at some point, just because they're running out of time. And this is one of those things where, let's see what he got to say.
Hello, this is probably the final update to the Stop Killing Games campaign. Though I'm coming at you a little bit like a time traveler would. It'll make sense in a minute. As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers. Now, we've gone about this in many ways, but it's easiest to divide this up by things we've already done and things we can still do, because there's about a dozen things we've already done. Yeah, in fact, here's a list if you want to pause this.
And then he goes
Going over this again will be a video in itself.
So submit complaints to the European Consumer Centers Network in multiple countries. The result, dead end, no consistency at all from the offices, was redundant at best. Another action that they have done is submit a petition to Canadian Parliament on the destruction of games. Dead end, said the provinces will have to deal with it, which are too small to impact the industry. Make contact with the BEUC to influence the EU Commission. That's ongoing. Submit complaints to the Waberschnauzel for the crew. Issue escalated at the agency. Decision is pending. Submit complaints to the DGCCRF on the crew. Issue escalated to the highest level of the agency. Decision pending. Contact the UFC choir on the crew. That's ongoing. Submit complaints to French legal mediators on the crew. Still processing, but likely to get deferred. So you're kind of starting to see this pattern here. There's very little agency, not really anything to be done here. Very little people's kind of speaking up or acknowledging that there is an issue. But continue to ask questions of the EU Commission on the destruction of games, said there could be a violation, but it has to be handled through the member states. An initial lawsuit in the Brazil on the crew failed due to us requiring sales figures on the crew in Brazil to proceed, which we don't have. And then they also submitted a complaint to the FTC.
I'll talk more about some of this towards the end. So that just leaves things we can still do, which are only 2 items. One is for the UK to sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though, keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government...
Now, just to be frank, I think trying to get the government to care in any way, shape, or form currently, I think it's going to be a hard move to do. Personally, just because of how video games are still, or just this form of entertainment is still looked at, not very non-serious, like, let the companies handle it, like, it's not really our space. You don't see it go too far. It's still treated like things are all right, and it's not that big of a deal.
Government response has been a mess by every definition. It's a long and boring story, but the short version is it's hit a bureaucratic roadblock and will stay stuck unless it gets more signatures. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so I think it could change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. So I figure, why wait until they actually do to tell people? Both the petitions end in July. The Citizens Initiative in particular on July 31st. This video probably won't change the timeline. It's just a last-ditch attempt to wake people up on it. The European Citizens Initiative failing kind of stings. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures from citizens of EU countries. And we've only made it just under halfway. That's really too bad, because I have high confidence this would have solved the problem of publishers destroying video games. Now, why do I say that? What a lot of people don't realize is that in the EU especially, It's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction. Okay, I don't want to put people to sleep here, but the quick legal argument is that the vast majority of games with an online requirement say they can be terminated at any time for any reason. Or Blizzard.
See, from the very jump, look, I'm not a game developer. I don't know what it goes in to make online experiences, right? It is very hard for me to believe that any online experiences that you could not place bots, that you could not have a slimmed down experience, that you could not have something in consideration, considering, especially in big old 2025, where not every game is going to be successful. For an example, let's talk about Concord. What up, Mishi? Let's talk like Concord for an example. People purchase Concord. People refunded for Concord. Now, what if you were a consumer that said, you know what? I bought Concord. I don't want you to refund Concord. I still want to play that game. Now, again, PlayStation could say, hey, we're not going to have the servers or whatever the case may be, but you could play it offline with bots or AI of some form and just stick it to it like that. Again, this is something that we used to do with Battlefield back in the day. You just load in, have a bot lobby, get your practice in, make sure your shots is hitting. You know, these are some of the things that have kind of continued to exist. But because of how games are being made today, there seems to be very little onus for the consumer, or consideration, I should say, for the future.
Likes to say any or no reason. But according to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms and consumer contracts. So if that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void. And if it's null and void, then what does the law say about how long your purchase lasts? Well, it doesn't. That's the whole mess. So if there are no legal guidelines, what are consumer expectations for how long video games last? Well, indefinitely. Even the average online multiplayer video games from the 90s can still work today if you didn't change the hardware or software.
That's a good point.
So the law wasn't written for this situation. The industry's terms might possibly be illegal, and traditional expectations are games last indefinitely. Now, of course, publishers can't support.
I think the biggest thing is that the laws for this stuff have not been looked at in quite some time. You see this in current modern day issues and laws and politics and stuff like that. There is things that have been progressively going on, or have progressively gotten worse, or progressively maybe don't make sense for our modern society, that need to be looked at and changed. Now, I get why in gaming things haven't been kind of looked at. Again, I would say gaming has been taken more seriously, I would say, over the last decade, maybe. So you have, if you're just considering the last decade, that's just taking us back to 2015. And most of us have been gaming much longer than that, right? That's why people stand up for emulation. That's why people stand up for piracy, no matter how you feel about piracy. For me at least, as a gamer, I understand piracy, because if you are telling me that I currently am only acquiring a license for even single player games, then the only way for me to be able to truly play this game in the future, in the case you decide to do something crazy, is for me to download this game from somewhere else, put it in my personal cloud, put it on a server, put it on my hard drive, whatever I got to do, so that way 30, 40, 50 years from now, I could boot up that game from that zip file, install it. Well, I can essentially run the installer, install the game, and play that game as is offline with no problems. I say the same thing for console hardware, right? There's a conversation about the Switch, for an example. It needs online requirements, right? Most of our modern consoles need internet connection. Right now, there is a time, I think Xbox as an example, and correct me if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, but for Xbox as an example, you have to do like a 30-day check-in kind of thing. Now, that's neither here or there. I don't think the net necessarily needs to be placed there either. And I know that people's argument is like, oh, well, still, everybody got internet now, man. So what's the big deal? And I would tell you that that's fucking irrelevant. Whether everybody has internet or not, there is no reason for me to acquire a device, for me to hand over my hard-earned money, regardless of what that cost is, and say, you know what? Not only did I fork over my money to you, but now if I'm not connected to the internet, I cannot access the piece of hardware that I purchased. And I get for, trying to account for all the negative things that could possibly happen. I get that the corps want to make sure that they're getting every single dollar that they can possibly acquire from us, right? In every way, shape, and form. Now, and again, I'm not necessarily against the whole online connectivity needing or essentially to set up, because again, we got cloud saves, we got all these different things that I want to be able to access, converting my console over for an example, one of the greatest things the Xbox, PlayStation, and even Nintendo does nowadays is essentially you transferring all of your data from one console to the next, completely seamless, very little issue for the most part. You could even do it off your phone. I think that's super dope. But once that initial time has passed, if I choose to go on a road trip, as an example, and again, I know this isn't going to be a thing for everybody, but let's make it even more drastic. If an EMP goes off tomorrow, if everything is completely disconnected, it is wild to me that, hey, within 30 days, I'm not going to be able to access my stuff. Hey, if I'm not going to be able to download my cloud saves because I hadn't played that game in X amount of time. I'm not going to be so on and so forth. There has to be something addressed and done about those things and looked at, right? I do think we as consumers have gotten way too comfortable. Yes, I appreciate the convenience of things being digital. 1000%. I love it. We don't have this no more. I don't have to worry about scratch CDs. I don't have to worry about getting repaired. I don't have to worry about the data on my disk completely being irrelevant. Shit. In PCs, for the most part, it has been digital for some time. My concern is that digital ownership, right? So,
port games indefinitely, but by not giving expiration dates or end-of-life plans, that might be the situation they've put themselves in. I cannot emphasize enough what a mess this is. If you were an impartial judge just trying to interpret the law, you'd have a headache. I don't know what you would do.
And Mishi mentions in chat, he says, the fact that Multiverse was able to shut down the game and not refund or offer an offline mode for players should be illegal. 1,000,000%. And when they did it the first time and said, oh, well, it was a beta, and then the game went away for a year. What are we talking about? I thought this was a release. Like, you're not even coming out with concise or accurate information for us. You're just doing whatever you feel like. And now the game is nowhere to be found. It's like, bro, I can still play the game offline. If I had some homies come over, you know what I mean? Like, let me and the homies brawl offline. What's the problem with that? Why do you have to completely remove the game off the store, allow us not to have any access? Oh, it's the servers, man. It's like, that's nasty work, bro. I want to shout out to the chat real quick. Appreciate y'all pulling up, man. Super dope. MF Grace says technology has been moving faster than the law for years now. It seems to be a constant thing. Technology moves faster than all of it, seemingly. Lydian says, what's happening? Seen a few videos talking about piracy. Just woke up here on the West Coast. It's more than just piracy, Lydian. Piracy is always going to be an ongoing conversation, right from wrong kind of thing. And again, I'm of the side, if you're just pirating to pirate, cool. Right now, it's a very massive gray area because we do not have true ownership of our digital content. Whereas if we did, I could more so be on the side of, I don't know if piracy is okay. You know what I mean? Again, to each their own, you do what you feel is best. And there's areas in regions where they have to kind of resort to piracy because it's not maybe affordable to them. It's not accessible to them, whatever the case may be. Again, I'm not saying it's a foolproof thing. I don't know what the true answer is. I don't work in legislation, bro. I am a gamer who talks about games on a week-to-week basis. I'm a normalized dude who wants to have conversation about different things that are happening within our industry that I personally feel that we still have a lot of sway in. And we as consumers don't have a lot of sway in a lot of things. that we can actively make a change in. Now, if we all stop going to Walmart, maybe Walmart will start doing things differently. But is that a reality? Is that something that's going to happen? Probably not. Because again, you got to weigh things out, and those that may be more fortunate to be able to choose a different place, you can afford Publix, you can afford Target, you can afford whatever other Aldi, whatever supermarket you want to go to. There are millions and millions of people who do rely on Walmart, as an example. So, MF Great says, oh, shout out to Jago, appreciate you. He said it's the East Coast, 1037. Great says, good morning, Lydian. Sometimes you just have to throw the sails up and take a ride for a good time. Say, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Again, I'm not going to be the one to argue. Yeah, you know? Jago says, games have been digital since its inception. The storage medium, disc, CD, Blu-rays, HDD, SSD is what has changed. 100%, Jago. It's a good point. You bring up a good point.
You'd probably tell the EU Commission they need to make a law on this because this is a glaring omission. So being in the middle of this quagmire right now, if we had rolled up with 1 million signatures demanding that the EU give us basic consumer rights for video games, that would have been the easy way out for regulators, because then they would have a mandate. That's what I meant about my half-joke slide about politicians liking easy wins. This situation is such a mess that trying to settle this under existing law is more work than creating laws under a consumer mandate. And thanks to the action we pushed at consumer protection agencies, doing nothing is no longer an option for multiple countries. We've made sure of that. But none of that matters because the initiative is failing. Now, my original thought was that ironically, it's difficult to get gamers to care about games
100%.
Because a whole lot of people are cruising at maximum apathy these days. But I think it's more than that. For most of the past year, the initiative has bounced back and forth between being the third and second most popular active initiative in the EU. The only ones that topped it were far more serious social issues. So that says to me, the problem isn't getting gamers to care about games, it's getting people to care about anything.
True.
And frankly, that is a checkmate move. If people can't care enough to write their name on a form to protect their rights and stop things they care about from being destroyed, then yeah, I can't do much with that. I am not a Care Bear that can shoot light out of my stomach to make people give a damn. Plus, it's hard to know how many people don't care and how many never knew about the initiative in the first place. It's certainly not for a lack of trying. I have tried to push this everywhere I can, though I'm an amateur at all of this. I have a medium-sized YouTube channel for making comedy videos involving gaming. That's it for my advantages. Now, I've tried to leverage this to push the initiative, get as much help as possible, but I've never been great at marketing and networking, stuff you need on a campaign. Yeah, in fact, I never wanted to do any of this.
Jago says AI will change the playing field when it comes to game preservation. That's what we're hoping for. That's something that we can hope for. That is one thing that I do hope that AI can help with. If it comes down to it's a manpower thing, then I damn sure do hope that AI can help relieve and solve some of the issues of it being a manpower issue. Go in the background, get the AI to understand the code, whatever you got to do. Find out how you can, again, with online games especially, whether it be Call of Duty, whatever the case may be, racing games. I just don't see, a game like The Crew, that shit don't make sense to me. I get that, we have a server, we got people connect, you got to connect to our server, and this is how we connect you with this, and this is how we do it. I hear you, bro. But isn't there also an issue to speak on as you weren't considering the game not lasting forever? You were kind of going into this with the plan that, hey, we're intentionally making this product for it to be pulled from the store whenever we want it to be. So it's how does that help the devs? How does that benefit the devs in that way? That you don't have a end of term or end of service kind of agreement, or you don't have an end of service future planning or end of service thought process that you're going into if you are a service-based game. I don't know. It's just weird.
We've been beating the drum on the problem of game destruction going on 10 years now, but the problem only got worse and worse, and nobody was doing a damn thing about it. So when the opportunity to do something finally presented itself in the form of the biggest game shutdown from a European company, I pounced on it as hard as I could. So I've hated doing almost every aspect of this campaign and will be very happy for it to end. but I would have hated myself even more if nobody stepped up to do anything. So in light of that, I think our exposure has been phenomenal. We've gotten a lot of support or just fair coverage from major YouTubers. Some ordinary gamers, Young Ye, Louis Rossman has been a bro especially. Gamers Nexus, Linus Tech Tips, Game Linked, Philip DeFranco, Asmongold, Black Panther, Second Wind, including Yahtzee and the Other Frost, Spawn Wave, Civi 11, Mandalore Games, Bellular News, Digital Foundry, Josh Strife Hayes, Tech Tangents. Honestly, it goes on and on. I'm leaving out a lot of people. My apologies on that. We've gotten game news outlet coverage. PC Gamer, IGN, Rock Paper Shotgun, Kotaku, TechSpot, Eurogamer, PC Games N, Destructoid, Game Rant. There's more. And regular news outlets, Metro, Euronews, Variety, Forbes, also many non-English outlets for France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Hungary. There's a lot. And some developers, Running with Scissors, Landfall Games, Mala Industria Games,
talk about it.
Octay, those awesome guys, and developers of emulators like Dolphin, PCS.
Mishi says AI will only release more broken, mediocre games. Mishi, if that's the direction they choose to go with AI, or if that ends up happening with AI, then once again, there is a bigger problem at the higher level. Because ideally, what AI should do is allow proper devs or talented devs to create more of an experience, right? You're working in tandem with something. Again, I know people like, or where I saw some people frustrated that there was a game, I forget exactly which game, but, and this is something that I think is fine with AI, but I get people want it personally done. People are doing trees and grass, right? There are literal concept artists or just artists in general who work on those types of things. Now, does that have to be your line of work in that studio? If you could have AI and you as the artist can help that AI generate the type of artistry that you're looking for as far as grass and trees go in that example, gravel, how things are placed. And wouldn't that allow you to place more focus on the experience in totality? Like, again, and I get you, you know, there's people out here that's like, I know some people might say, well, Steele, that's like saying, you know, the person that's drawing a landscape, man, and they're drawing the trees and the grass, and they're drawing this scene. It's like, oh, well, they could just replace it with AI, and what's the big deal? I do think that paintings, I do think that stuff like that is a little bit different than games, although I can hear the argument. I can definitely understand it. Now, has gaming proven that there needs to be emphasis placed in other areas that matter more to the core experience? I think so. We've gotten more broken games than ever before, and now far and few in between. We're seeing double and single A devs, indie devs, come out with games that seemingly need less updates day one than bigger games do. That doesn't make a remote bit of sense to me. It's like they had to make sure that the game, whatever it was complete when they had to release discs back in the day, right? When they couldn't just push out an update. You had to work with what you had. Now you can update and do whatever till the last minute, to the time that the game goes live. When you've been working on this project for X amount of time. And again, I've been in project management. I know how these things go. I know what bringing it, crushing it down to the metal looks like. I get you. But we're also in an industry, in a form of entertainment now, where people are like, oh, well, crunch is bad. Deadlines, man, I want to give my people a day off. Screw that deadline, man. If the game releases broke, it releases broke. It's all right. Mind's Eye is an example of a recent game that came out. There is no excuse for that game to have released in the condition that it did. Now, I get that some people had a good time with it, felt the same way about Cyberpunk, and everybody felt the way that they did about Cyberpunk and said it wasn't that great when it released, especially on the previous gen, which is, that's a whole nother conversation to get into. But what if they would have had some help with AI to accomplish whatever goal they're trying to see? Again, I'm not saying that it's perfect. I don't know what the overall answer is, but something has to give. Not only are we fighting against digital ownership now, but now you're not even giving me a complete product, but you want me to spend $80 to $100 on this product, on this software that I don't even own. Doesn't make sense to me.
SX2, MPP, SSPP, and some more indie developers I may have lost track of. I'm sorry. And this last one is hearsay, but it's my favorite if true. Developers from Ubisoft Ivory Tower. The people who made The Crew, which is the game we used to get all this action rolling in the first place. Yeah, it turns out a lot of developers who spend years of their lives working on something don't like seeing it destroyed by publishers. Who'd have thought? And I've been saying yes to almost all offers for interviews, questioning, or any kind of outreach opportunities that came our way. I honestly don't know how many interviews I've done on this issue at this point. It's easily dozens, though not all of them were on video. One was even for BBC Radio. And then there would be the spontaneous offers that would pop up throughout the entire campaign, like working with members of European Parliament to push through questions to the EU Commission, having meetings with the BEUC as another route to the EU Commission, meetings with representatives from GOG. That one was looking promising until they fired the representatives we were talking with, then backpedaled. That sucked. Meetings with representatives from Heineken. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. Heineken, of all companies, supports the initiative because it ties in well with some gamer lounge campaign they have going.
It is on 1.5
That one was going to be a
speed,
huge boost for us. But they ended up having to postpone it a year, which is too late. I've had meetings with Fudo, F-Camp. Probably the funniest of these was another member of European Parliament who was also on the Committee on Culture and Education. Their staff reached out to me, set appointments, canceled, then kept having to reschedule 3 times. And this is all on top of the day-to-day outreach, organizing, and just basic community.
Vandal says, new daily morning show still? Maybe I do a little something like that, but this is more so I would consider this lunch with Steel, kind of the video series that I've been doing that you guys might have seen on the channel. I upload those videos to members first if you're in the Horde of War tier, and I typically upload them. They'll get uploaded later on a scheduling kind of thing. This is something that I was thinking about just intaking for the show, because that's something that I do. Now that I've beat Stellar Blade the first time, I can now kind of casually play the game, listen to content and stuff like that. That's typically what I do leading up to the show every Saturday morning for Live a Split Screen. And this was an opportunity to kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. I want to start putting more content out there, put myself out there more in front of people, and just kind of express myself, you know what I mean? And I think that this is an awesome way, expose more people to stuff. Again, I don't think there's enough people talking about Mecha Break right now, but it's neither here or there. Maybe we'll get into that later, but it's something that I do feel passionate about. This is something that me and Pong have discussed, game preservation, how we look on it, what we want. So I thought it was, a prime opportunity, man. So appreciate you for coming through. Mishi, he says, I like these types of streams. Hey, man, I appreciate it. Look, I mean, again, I'm somebody that kind of overthinks things as well. And again, it's a very human thing, right? We're motivated to do something, and if we get into the process, like, I don't know, man, people really gonna care. And it's like, let's just stop caring. Let's just stop like overthinking things and just get into it. So that's the main thing. Let's see. Somebody else said something. Jago says, Mind's Eye should have been made by AI, would have probably released better. Look, I heard the game has some bones. Just some of the bones may be fragile. MF Great says multiplayer experiences are guaranteed for 10 years after release. Multiplayer experiences, like, I get as far as the service side, as far as from the company, it being supported, but after that 10 years, you have to have some form of turnaround. You have to have some way of still allowing gamers to access that content in an offline state. I'm not saying like you got to make sure that it's updated moving forward. None of that. You essentially you put out an update and say, hey, this is the final update. Everything moving forward is going to be on your side. We'll swap things over to peer-to-peer, whatever you need to do. I think that would be an avenue to look at or possibly chase, like Halo Infinite, for an example. Were people going to move from Halo Infinite and move on to the next Halo, or Halo MCC? What if Halo MCC says, oh, well, we can't keep the servers up anymore? You're just gonna pull the game? You got several games there that I could play. I can't play those games now, or is it gonna be available to me in an offline state? And I think in those examples, I think they would be, but neither here or there. Jago says Concord was multiplayer, and look how that turned out. And even in the sake of Concord, if Sony wouldn't have refunded everybody, and again, I think that's the most immediate way that you can kind of alleviate yourself on a lot of that is, hey, here's a refund. Especially if the game that just came out, 2 weeks, boom, refund, man. Hey, it didn't work. It is what it is. Here's your bread back. I do think that it should have been an option for consumers saying, hey, we're not going to be able to keep these servers up no longer, but if you want to play the game offline, maybe play peer-to-peer, maybe we offer it to a third party, and even that could be done through PlayStation. Hey, we have a third party that kind of runs the servers or whatever. It may be a server or two, and maybe the game grows over time. Maybe, and I know there's more that goes into it as well. I saw some people bring it up. Well, not that will require giving the gamers the code and letting them do what blah, blah, blah. And it's like I get it. I don't have all the answers. I'm not expecting for anybody else to necessarily have the answers, but I am expecting for the people who are making this software and who are in charge of this industry to at least do something, like take some form of consideration for the consumer.
Communication with God knows how many people. Again, I've hated doing this because I have to fight all my instincts not to bother people. I hate being a pest, but you kind of have to do some of that when campaigning. At this point, I've written a couple thousand emails connected to the campaign, trying to do outreach, research, and just keeping things together. I haven't done that much on Twitter because I don't have much of a presence there. Same goes for Reddit. Yeah, Reddit. I received so many reports of promotions of the initiative being deleted, and some of the ones that stayed up are some of the most hostile to the initiative that I've seen. Yeah, isn't Reddit just a wonderful place to be nowadays?
I don't
Discord launch
traverse on
where people
Reddit.
can independently organize, so I wouldn't be bottlenecking anything if others had better ideas on what to do. I believe currently they're trying to contact TV stations about this in Europe, something I never would have had a clue how to do. That's exactly the sort of thing I was hoping would emerge. Yeah, I really want to emphasize that from the second the initiative launched, nothing had to go through me. It's been there, in public, this entire time.
Shout out to Isaac Hayes 85, aka Mr. Walk On By, with the exotic loot on board. Appreciate you for being a part of that Hortivore tier. He says, what's good, Steel and Chad? What's good, Isaac? Appreciate you coming through. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Hopefully everything is sounding good, looking good, and feeling good for you. Let's get back into the end of Stop Killing Games.
Time, with easy multilingual guides at stopkillinggames.com. We blazed a trail to make it easy for others to act on this, but that wasn't enough. So it feels like I've been running a rickshaw carrying people to the destination to save games, except it's breaking down halfway. The work on this has never stopped. I never wanted my involvement on the campaign to last this long. I kept hoping after launch, somebody with more reach and better at campaigning could just point people to the destination and get it done. But no, I've had to keep hauling that rickshaw. Not every week, but there have been many weeks on the campaign where I've been working 12 to 14 hours a day to keep things moving to get signatures. And the only way I was even able to do that was to burn some of my savings and put everything else on hold. I've been kind of stupid about this because it's our only shot. Again, this is an amateur effort. That means there's no staff and no salary. So if I need help with something and ask a volunteer to help with it and they disappear on me, well, then they disappear on me and I need to do it myself. Or if I can't, then I need to hunt down someone else to help with it and hope they don't disappear on me. Meanwhile, my channel has been suffering, as my viewers can tell you. I'm stretched too thin. Now, I have been maybe fairly criticized for not running a fundraiser for this. There are reasons for that. The first is, until recently, I didn't know where we would spend it. People would say, buy ads. But the initiative could be considered political.
Fair.
And YouTube doesn't allow political ads in a lot of EU countries. And neither does Twitch.
Okay,
good luck
fair.
reaching gamers without YouTube or Twitch. So taking money with no plan,
That's a good
grift.
point.
And another reason is I am one of the worst people to manage that sort of thing. Financial paperwork is an Achilles heel of mine and seems to take me 10 times more effort than anything else. I mean, I can do accounting, budgeting, math. That's not a problem. No, I mean having knowledge of all the obscure forms you need to fill out, what all the tax laws that apply are, what all the specialized terminology
I'm right
is,
there.
and just all the hidden
Insane.
rules. Now, you might say just hire an international tax accountant for multiple countries.
Costs
Okay,
money.
there goes a third of our funding then. So what are we even doing? I cannot emphasize how much I
He's
struggle with
spitting.
financial business crap like that. So the thought of me putting together a fundraiser for what might be considered a political fund that needs to adhere to laws in multiple countries, and if I make a mistake, that could be considered a crime? Oh, no. That's like asking somebody with severe dyslexia to write a book report on war and peace. I am the wrong person for that job. But I've still been trying, to the best of my ability anyway. I didn't discover this until late in the process, that even though general ads were out, sponsored messages were still an option for some countries. And some mysterious benefactors emerged offering to pay them directly. But that means I needed to find all these channels and broker all these deals. So as a last-ditch effort, I've been looking through hundreds of targeted non-English gaming channels trying to find good candidates for this. Then work with bilingual liaisons for each language, then try to put together a contract and figure out what a good offer is.
He's doing
for
a
the amount
lot of
views we
steps,
expect.
bro.
I am so out of my depth on this, but I'm still trying. At this point, I've browsed through more clickbait AI-generated thumbnails than I have the entire rest of my life.
What's great? What's crazy is this is deliberately demonstrating that, and I know this is more so something that's going on in the EU. It's actually surprising to me that you don't see a U.S. option. And maybe there is. And again, I'm just now more so getting put on games. This is something that we have discussed about before on Live a Split Screen, and had mentioned to people like on the podcast, hey, if you're in the EU, check this out, see if it's something for you that you want to support, and kind of go from there. If I was able to, and if America was a selected country in this, I would definitely go for it. But unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like that's happening here per se. And maybe there is, and somebody could put me on game about it. That way we can start that. But I'm not the martyr for this stuff either, right? I can be nothing but I can be nothing but a talking head, you know what I mean, and put light on it. And just like he went to everybody, well, went to all these other people and did essentially the same thing, putting light on the situation, saying, hey man, like, damn, like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I'm trying, I'm out of my depth. And as he described, bro, I am out of my depth in this shit. I'm trying to figure it out. Doesn't seem like enough people are caring, or at least don't care the way that I do. And it's like, if people don't care, then people got to stop complaining. If you are no longer able to access your content 10 years from now, then the only person that you can put the onus on is you. Because there are people like Accursed coming out here. There's other, and all the other places that he ended up serving to, or trying to get the information out to, in their audience, who has been kind of blatantly ignored. And even like, this is one of those things where, bro, if you had, and again, I'm not suggesting for anybody to do this. Don't say this is, I'm playing. I'm being funny. This is a joke, by the way. What I'm about to say is a joke. I could see streamers getting together and saying, yo, I'm gonna get together with a VPN provider. Let's set up a VPN, go to this site, say that you're in this country, and fill out this petition so we can get this ball rolling. This is something that is serious. And then we can start doing things over here as well. Or at least starting something on this side, seeing somebody who's passionate enough, jump into it, but like, yo, you know what? I believe in the vision that you got. I got some M's behind me. Let's see what we can do to really put some things forward and try to fight this battle, man, because it's worth it for the consumer. Vandal says, Jago, I just mentioned him because I think Steel will be a good counter to his lies at this time slot. He's talking about Vandal's talking about Reforge. Look, man, hey, I'm not trying to be a replacement for anybody. I know there's people out there that think that I be just saying whatever, that I don't say anything that I truly believe, or I'm being dishonest. Look, anybody can believe whatever they want. I've been real Steel from the very beginning of the game, live, raw, and uncut. The energy, the takes, how I feel about things has been consistent since the very beginning. When people were shitting on Xbox in the beginning, as an example, I was the one pointing out, but you know, these games and Game Pass, though, you know, and I know that's not the thing for everybody. I don't need to be for everybody. I'm pretty sure I make that blatantly clear. But I do want to be an outlet for people. So you can come in, hang out, chill, get your bars off, say how you feel, because I'm not going to get in here and disparage nobody. You know what I'm saying? I can just as easily ignore somebody talking mad smack to me versus anybody else, right? And I don't have the best camera or mic or whatever the case may be, but I do get passionate about this industry because it is something that I care about, right? Prime example, I had an opportunity to get down with Nintendo. I had to end up turning it down because I don't necessarily believe in what Nintendo is doing. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that as well, but that's the level that I go to. You know what I'm saying? Like, if there's certain things that I just can't stand behind, like I just can't all of a sudden, I can't talk all what I do about Nintendo and then all of a sudden become a Nintendo shill or become quiet and not be able to express myself out to the public, because this is something that I like doing, you know what I mean, along with playing games more so than anything. You know, I would love to be able to just to be streaming and play games, have people come in and out, and I expose more people to stuff, but it's neither here or there. I left him with his mouth open. Let's move forward. Let's do that. He got his mouth closed. Appreciate that. Isaac says this is Timu Asmund Gold. Hey, we're stupid. Y'all are some fools this morning. Vandal says, I keep trying to tell gamers to write their legislators to tell them to write bills to protect digital libraries. They kept laughing at me, though. Write your legislators, folks. That's the one thing that you can do. But again, that's a whole nother conversation, man. Making people care about just the political spectrum in totality. We don't have enough people who make it look good enough or are trying to get the common person to understand. Because at the end of the day, in order to make a move, you gotta pull the normies, and that's the main issue that we got right now. Jago says, Steel, we all know you mean well and real when it comes to gaming. You're good, bro. Oh no, it's all. Bro, I'm not trying to explain myself to nobody, but there are people who, and again, I'm not saying that somebody like Free4, as an example, doesn't believe the things that he says. But it's also hard for me to believe that you don't hear other people's critique, because that's something that I just can't stand behind either. When other people are critiquing you, and I take that exactly what it is. You putting yourself out on the internet, bro, you're open to critique. People can say whatever they want to. They can feel however they want to. And at the end of the day, it should not impact your real life, because none of this should be taken on a personal level. People started doxing and doing all the extra shit. Like, dog, you can find out whatever you want to about me. It's not going to change how I feel or what I'm going to do, and I dare you to pull up. You know what I mean? Like, so it's different for different people. But we do have a lot of people who kind of do it for a take, or just do it to be hot in the moment. And it's just, you know, I just like to continue to reiterate that that's just not my standpoint. We don't have enough people who come out and say, yo, this is what it is. We don't have enough places where we're having genuine conversation back and forth, getting different opinions, and people expressing themselves. Because again, especially in gaming, this shouldn't be a me and you, like, right versus wrong thing. Because unless you work for the company directly and you can tell me exactly what is happening, and in most cases that is not something that you're able to do if you're working for a Microsoft, a PlayStation, or any of these big companies. That is not something that you could do. If you've had a job, you just can't go out in public, even under an alias, and say whatever the fuck that you want to say. You just can't do that. You know what I mean? That's why people do choose to not have pictures or be completely anonymous online, because it gives them a little bit more of that space to be able to do some of those things. But everything that I do is say I'm standing behind. You know what I mean? There's nothing outlandish, and I'm like, oh, hey, Steel. 10 years later, you pull up this take, and you're like, remember when you said this? I can look at that and be like, you know what? Yeah, I did say that, and I explain it to you. We have a conversation, and either maybe you help me look at things differently, or you don't.
Decide which part of the campaign I've hated the most. Acting as an advertising broker, not knowing our budget or what's a good offer, or trying to research laws governing this practice that don't exist, except I didn't know that at the time. So how are these sponsored ads going? Are they going to get us the signatures? As of recording this, I don't know. It's a Hail Mary pass as it is. I'm just going to assume it won't, and I'm completely spent on ideas on how to get more signatures. I did everything I possibly could to make this campaign work. It wasn't enough. Or rather, I did everything that made sense to me. I did receive a lot of suggestions of things I do not think would have worked. A bunch of people told me to make short form videos on this. I tried that. They got a fraction of my usual views. I've been told make more videos on my channel saying the same thing. But lots of views on my channel doesn't help if it's all the same audience, because people get only signed once. We have to reach new audiences. I've been told become a full-time streamer. I might consider it if I thought it would work, but I don't. I've been told I should have made a bigger deal about countries crossing minimum thresholds. Well, I didn't want to celebrate that because that's an arbitrary number. They're the minimums. All that really matters is that 1 million number, and we're a long ways away. Now, another suggestion has been to make a plea to big gamers, like PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, Moist Critical, Markiplier, anyone like that.
Moist Critical did get on board.
Yeah, I think that might be a great idea. Our biggest obstacle in the campaign has always been getting enough exposure, and they have exposure. I think any one of them could end this with one video and change gaming history. Problem is, I have no idea how to reach any of them. Plus, I can understand if they might shy away from this. First, they're probably busy people. But second, they may not want the kind of heat that comes with changing gaming history, even if it's for the better. And third, if they back this, then 1 million people might mob them to back something else, and then there's no end to it. So I actually can understand some people wanting to sit this out. I mean, yeah, it really sucks that we can't get enough attention on this badly needed change in the games industry, but I'm not shocked either. Honestly, I'm already punching way, way above my weight class on this. My main promotion video for it got a little under 250,000 views, and about 15% of my audience is from EU countries who are eligible to sign. So that means I shouldn't have expected much more than 30 to 40,000 signatures from my audience, and we're over 10 times that. It's almost like a lot of people out there don't like having their games destroyed. Now. Anyway, most of the criticism I've seen for how I've run this campaign kind of comes down to be more popular. Yeah, sure, maybe everybody else knows how to do that. I don't. I kind of view that critique as similar to don't be poor financial advice. And that's from people who support the campaign. For all the support and fair coverage we've received, there's been some opposition too. Though I want to say 80, maybe even 90% of people who are against the initiative are against it because they think it's doing something it's not. For example, the #1 criticism about the initiative that we've never been able to shake is that it's unworkable because you can't expect publishers to support games forever. Yeah, we know. That's why we've never asked for that. I must have said this 100 times now. It was written on the website from day one, but this keeps coming up over and over again. See, that's the thing. As soon as you say 3 words.
See, and it says, aren't you asking companies to support games forever? Isn't that unrealistic? And they say, no, we're not asking that at all. We are in favor of publishers ending support for a game whenever they choose. What we are asking for is that they implement an end-of-life plan to modify or patch the game so that it can run on customer systems with no further support from the company being necessary. We agree that it is unrealistic to expect companies to support games indefinitely and do not advocate for that in any way. Additionally, there are already real-world examples of publishers ending support for online-only games in a responsible way, such as Gran Turismo Sport, Knockout City, Mega Man X Dive, Scrolls, Caller's Bane, and Duelist, published by Bandai Namco.
Day one, but this keeps coming up over and over again. See, that's the thing. As soon as you say 3 words on requiring end-of-life plans, gamers especially will jump to some conclusion, and I never know where they're going to land.
And that's 100%. Like, we're not. I don't. It does not make sense for the consumer to ask the publisher to continue to update this game for the next 100 years. It's not realistic and it doesn't make sense. But as that mentioned, you have to have some form of end of date or end of whatever to let people know, hey, this is what is going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And moving forward, it will be moved into an offline state. Whatever you do in that offline state is completely up to you. If you brick your save, if you break, or whatever you do, if you mod the game out and turn it to something completely different and you no longer have access, do not look for us to help resolve your problems. Mishi says, the only petition that works is the one that involves your wallet. Stop buying games and they will listen. But Mishi, people are also against people using Game Pass. So it's like, you could just fight back and be like, oh, we don't. But again, because even that would, like, I feel like would have the opposite results, because again, you're not buying the game technically. You have access to the game, and under that premise, I can understand if you no longer have access, because once the Game Pass runs out, or if Game Pass is taken away, then it is what it is. But as long as I still have access to buy said game, then I should have said ownership of thy game, which is not the case today. So if I stop buying games, like this is one of my main one of my main hobbies, right? Gaming is something that I really love and appreciate and care for. And just like people you see working out as a hobby, painting as a hobby, whatever other hobby that you have, gaming fits in that just as well, right? And I will always argue for that. So, and as part of your hobby, like I could say, some of the people who collect cards, well, just stop collecting cards or something to change. Sure, but if that's something that you enjoy, maybe you could find another hobby. And at the end of the day, if things continue to go the way that they are, and I have enough of my games that I care about that I no longer have access to, and that's the other crazy thing, because I'm not somebody that is so intrinsically in this, because I don't replay my games. If I don't have access to my game years later, sure, it may bother me in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's like, was I really playing that? Nah, not really. But that does not dismiss the fact that if I purchased said game, then I should, no matter what, if I get a wild hair, if I want to introduce my kids, my grandchildren, whatever the case may be, that I can boot that thing, I can reinstall it, boot it up, and it works as intended. Within reason.
Ironically, non-gamers tend to be much better at understanding the initiative, because they're not coming with a whole bag full of assumptions. A couple other criticisms are how this would violate copyright law by forcing publishers to give up their intellectual property. No, it wouldn't. Some of you may want to pause this part.
It says the initiative wouldn't conflict with copyright law for 2 reasons. The customer would have no additional rights beyond what they were sold in the first place. The ability to run a copy of the publisher's game. The only difference between now would be that the publisher would no longer be able to permanently revoke the license without any fault from the customer, i.e. hacking, online cheating, etc. 2, because the initiative focuses exclusively on the outcome, a working game, and not the methodology for doing so, source code, server binary, specific files, etc., no specific demands for any intellectual property are being made to the publisher. This leaves full discretion to the publisher in how they wish to manage their intellectual property. While the publisher may deem it necessary to release more intellectual property to fulfill the requirement of letting the customer retain a copy of their game, the initiative is not specifically mandating that.
Or how this won't work because of
Makes sense.
end-user license agreements. That's also not a problem.
It says the initiative would still work regardless of what terms are stated in the EULA and user license agreement. Since it if passed, it would become an EU directive which would supersede any conflicting terms from consumer license agreements.
Or how this isn't possible because publishers already have agreements with other companies and don't have the rights to distribute that code. We're aware of that. Yes, the initiative is still possible.
Says the terms of the initiative would still be possible regardless of any pre-existing deals with publishers that might conflict with it because it's not retroactive. If passed, it would not go into effect until likely years from now, giving publishers time to make new deals for future games they wish to sell in the EU. For existing games where these terms would still not be possible, there are multiple options, but only the EU Commission could make the final decision on what would happen. Some examples are shutting down the game before the new directive goes into effect, and exempting existing games from the new requirements and only affecting new games sold after the directive goes into effect.
Those are the ones I've seen most organically. Beyond that, there is a clear patient zero where others come from. Okay, I really don't want to do this next part, but it's become a liability for the campaign for me not to. Our biggest critic by far is YouTuber and streamer Pirate Software, who goes by Thor. If your only exposure to Stop Killing Games has been this video, then you've been misinformed. This video is by someone who does not understand the campaign, has been trying to stop it, and has been making up what it is about. I am not saying that lightly. I will prove it in a minute. Now you might be thinking, okay, so some YouTuber got something wrong on the internet.
This is gonna be dope.
So what? See, that was my thinking too. The problem is how incredibly influential this YouTuber has been. Remember that list of coverage on the campaign? Well, best I can tell, Thor's coverage has been bigger than literally anyone else on those lists, except Asmongold. And the only video Asmongold had on this bigger than Thor's was about Thor's video. So for all practical purposes, Thor here has been the #1 voice on the campaign, and he's been lying about what it is. That's a bit loaded though. In this case, I'm using the second definition of lie. I have no evidence it's the first. This video came out right as we were building momentum, then except for one boost in Germany, the signatures started drying up like clockwork. This put me in kind of a no-win scenario too, because if I ignored it, then a lot of people are gonna get misinformed about the campaign. But if I did a response video, which is not something I wanted to do anyway, then it might look like drama farming, which could understandably turn off a lot of people from the campaign, because...
And I think stuff like that, like, you have to weigh out what you feel is best. I think a lot of people put stuff under drama farming or just put titles on things, which I find corny as well. But sometimes like stuff like that, if you wanted to just create a response to it, I would have just created a response to it if it were me in a scenario. I don't care if people feel like it's drama farming or not. I am here to demonstrate to you or trying to provide information to you because I feel passionate about what I am saying. And you can either listen to what I am saying or you can create your own narrative, which at the end of the day, you're going to do whatever you want to with it, no matter what. So I'm not at fault for that.
It's not about that at all. So I quickly made this video trying to clear up all misconceptions and concerns about the initiative with timestamps for everyone's questions, hoping the truth would eventually come out. I can see now that was a mistake. I should have just embraced the drama. To this day, I'm still getting frequent comments and emails about the same falsehoods about the campaign that originated in this video. Well, now I have nothing to lose. If we don't get the signatures, then none of this matters anyway. So if this campaign is failing because of me not talking about this, then I'll at least correct history here on the way down. I'll get this over with and go over what I think are the biggest points of Pirate Software's videos. I'm not going to go over everything because collectively Thor has made hours of video on both me and the movement. I'd be here forever. Believe me, I could address smaller things too, and I already have. All right, let's start. Okay, point number 1. Thor does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives is basically we don't want single-player games to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them. And as much as they want it to be about specifically games, where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists, instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. This is what I mean. It's harder for gamers to understand this because they come with so many assumptions. It's like that saying about doctors being the worst patients. So let's clear this up. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative. Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support. The long version depends on what kind of transaction is being made. As you can see, it's not easy to explain in a soundbite. But if you notice, we don't make a distinction between single-player and multiplayer games. That's because the law doesn't either. So why make this even harder? Both
It says, stop destroying video games initiative, the long explanation. Games sold as one-time purchases with no stated expiration date that do not require a connection to the publisher or affiliated parties in order to function at the time of shutdown. No impact. These games would already meet the requirements of the initiative. Games sold as a one-time purchase with no stated expiration date that require connection to the publisher or affiliated parties to function. Publishers would be required to implement an end-of-life plan so that their support would no longer be necessary to run the game once it's shut down. I don't think that that's I don't think that that's so far out of the scope of reasoning. I mean, or just say up front what it is, bro. Like, if you buy this game, this is what it is. Like, point blank, period. We're not going to. You have every right as a publisher to be able to do that. But at least if I know that up front, I shouldn't have to read the EULA to go through that. You know what I mean? But the publishers and these companies are so worried about selling their product to the less than 5% who end up purchasing. This is factual information. You can check it if you'd like, but selling product or selling their software to the less than 5% of gamers in the entire gaming industry, at least on the console and PC side, because mobile game is a little bit different. I would almost say vastly different, but in this scope of it though, the less than 5% of gamers who buy games on a month-to-month basis, I don't see what will be wrong with it. Like, I don't know. It's weird. Games that are completely free, no impact since no commerce is involved. Requirements on completely free games we see as overreach. Yeah, you can't do nothing about those. Microtransactions for games sold as a one-time purchase with no stated expiration date. The publisher will be required to implement an end-of-life plan when support ends, so the customer's microtransaction would not be permanently disabled. This would necessitate having the game it was sold for in a functioning state, even if the customer may not be entitled to the game directly. Now, this is something that I have an issue with, like Call of Duty as an example. And part of the reason why I'm not playing the new COD, just as an example, right? You went back to back under the understanding that our content was going to be moving forward. My purchases were moving forward. I don't see in modern day Call of Duty why any purchases that I make throughout your battle pass, through anything, that stuff would need to be removed out of my library and I will no longer have access to those purchases that I've made. So essentially I just made purchase for something that I will no longer be able to access, or I can access, but let's be real, I'm not going to be playing it because it's not the modern game, and that's not your intention. You want us to be playing the most modern game so you can get the best numbers possible and get the support for that. It's crazy that Call of Duty Mobile seems to understand the entire point of what COD should be versus what we're getting on console, where it's like, oh, we're going to separate everything. We're not just going to keep iterating and updating this game and just making it better, adding more maps, giving you different things. No, you want to end support, or you can't just charge me $40 for a campaign because people like playing campaign. I hear you. But that's also something that you could just drop as an expansion. Oh, here's a campaign expansion. Oh, here's the Black Ops 2. Here's the Black Ops 3. Here's the, so on and so forth. Like, oh, here's these campaigns. But what we're also going to do is we're going to drop a battle pass that has these cosmetics and this, and all this stuff carries forward. You always have access to it. You'll be able to play as whatever character that you ended up ever purchasing. That would just do so much for the end consumer. But what can I expect out of COD who can't even get anti-cheat right? It makes up and people make every excuse in the world up for them for why, we can never truly solve anti-cheat. Well, why is there a red and blue team as far as security goes? There's hackers and there's defenders for a reason. The people that are hacking, maybe COD, maybe Activision, maybe Microsoft should be reaching out and saying, yo, what are y'all doing that is allowing these things to happen? Hey, maybe what we can do instead, hey, Xbox it's a good step for you to say, oh, well, only Xbox branded products you can use on console. How about across the board, if we detect anything from a controller that does not seem right, it's getting blocked. You're gonna have to restart the game, whatever the case may be. People are putting mods inside of their controllers, and this has been an ongoing thing for years, bro. And people are only concerned about the PC side of things. There's console cheaters as well. Bro, they were literally selling Cronus at GameStop. So, like, what are we talking about? You can actively right now go Take your Xbox controller as an example, PlayStation controller as an example, take it to somebody to mod your controller, and Xbox is not going to know the difference. So what are you supposed to do for that? Games that are sold as a service with stated expiration date. We would attempt to require publishers to have some sort of end-of-life bill when the support ends, but would probably fail as there is no basis in consumer law for this. Our only justification would be via art and culture preservation laws, which are very weak. King Styles, what's going on? Mishi says COD Mobile and Diablo Immortal both have something in common. They are made by Chinese dev and have more content than the games made by Activision Western devs. You know what is and it's fucking insane to me, dog, because you're just a branch off of the initial IP. So why can't that be something that's carried on? Like, yo, y'all want mobile numbers so bad. Oh, well, these mobile players are spending all this money and they're engaging this way, but you're not trying to move any of our content forward. And you're wondering why people don't like to engage in your shit. Or you're wondering why you have the problems that you do. Like, things don't, like, it's not making sense. Delroy was popping, baby. He says, what's happening? Just stopping by to say hi, stealing gang. Hey, appreciate you, Del. Appreciate it, man. Let's get back into it.
Both the movement and the law are making distinctions on how games are sold. Also, that part he said about it affecting all live service games, yes and no. It would affect most live service games in the future, but the initiative is not retroactive. So that's one thing Thor doesn't understand, but he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single player. Once again, he made that up, and I have no idea why he thought that.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single-player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single player, rebuilding everything in the entire game. How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy XIV? You're just going to make all the raids soloable? Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game. That's what they're asking for.
No.
Because they would have to sunset live service games as a single-player experience. The idea that suddenly you need to make every single live service game playable single-player offline? No, dude.
Correct. No. This one is particularly baffling to me because I've heard most counter-arguments before, but until Thor, I've never heard this one. That we want the industry to convert all multiplayer games into single-player ones. I keep saying it, you never know where gamers are going to take this.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games.
Oh, he's so close. He's so close to getting it.
It is vague, and because of that, it will impact.
Hold on, guys.
He never has that light bulb moment. Well, he is correct in that statement. It's almost as if that's not what the initiative is asking for. But those were his streams with a smaller audience. What does he say in his big YouTube video with over 1 million views that he had time to research?
If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single-player experience, and then taking away support in the future.
Now he's changed it again and is making up how it's about single-player games are advertised. What is he doing?
It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies that are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem.
No, that's not it at all.
And there are some people who will say, well, just make it all single player.
Like
well,
you?
I've explained that that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single player, you have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. These are two different ideologies, and that's okay to have two different ideologies. I just won't agree with it.
But those aren't the ideologies. Nothing in the initiative is asking to convert games to single player.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single player games.
Yeah, so why does he keep bringing it up? This is a total red herring.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them existing, we're against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer. Just use logic. If we didn't like them in the first place, why would we care if they're being destroyed? He says he gets it, but he doesn't.
Let's talk about the actual bad business practices. In the case that a studio is making a live service game, and they sell it to you as a product, they say that you are purchasing the game, or you are buying the game, when in reality you're actually purchasing or buying a license to that game, I think that we should be fighting about that. The initiative is not trying to call that out specifically. It's trying to say that all games need to stay in a functional, playable state.
Yes!
Which is not calling out the language that is being used to manipulate the player. Call that out specifically.
Okay, I don't know if he's doing this intentionally. I'll be charitable and assume he's not. But this is some serious obfuscation. He's complaining that the initiative isn't focused on another topic he made up. I mean, what is that logic? Hey, the initiative doesn't address how Capcom changed the look of Dante in the Devil May Cry reboot either. That may as well be what he's saying there. I am not aware of a game on the planet with a license agreement that says you are not buying a license. Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason. That sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms are so hostile to consumers and the medium that they should be taken off the table entirely. This needs regulation. Forget video games. If you look at basic commerce for hundreds of years, when you paid money, you either got to keep what you paid for, or if it was a service, you were told when your access ends. The vast majority of online-only games do neither of those. The games industry is trying to upend basic commerce. I think you have to go back to feudalism before neither of those things are true. Why even have consumer laws if you have no rights?
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no! He wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever. He was literally watching the video earlier where it says it won't do that in big letters. That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers from going there, even when we spell it out. I admit, guys, this part hurts. To see the biggest voice on this issue get it wrong again and again and again, then put that same wrong information on blast to a far bigger audience than we can reach. It hurts. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what we're asking for. Now, to be fair, it sounded like he was getting a little closer in this video. Yeah, despite being called 2, it's at least the 4th video he did on this.
You want that to stay in a
stuck in the
functional playable
couch.
state. That means the devs have to release either server binaries or somehow carve off the game to be a single-player experience now.
That's better, but he's still talking about converting the single player right to the end. He never completely got it. So Pirate Software did not understand the initiative. Maybe still doesn't. That means the majority of his critique is about things it would not do, like kill all MMOs.
If that passes, enjoy never playing an MMO again for the rest of your life. And taking away from every other person that plays MMOs.
It really wouldn't. And I've explained why in that video, but the short version is companies would have to stop liking money for that to happen. Lots of money. But his number one criticism is that he thinks the initiative is vague.
Incredibly vague. Too vague. Very vague and vague. It's vague. It's vague. That is vague. Too vague. Vaguely vague. Incredibly vague. Vaguely worded. Vague. 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 This is vague.
This goes on. Well, from Thor's perspective, his logic is pretty sound for this part. But the thing about logic is it's only as good as your assumed truths. And he said multiple times now that he...
All right, real quick. Let me... I need to get her back situated, guys. So let me actually... what should I do here? Because I could just continue to let it play. But I don't want to like abuse the content either. Because again, I think we were having a good conversation. And I think there's multiple points to be made. But let me real quick... let me see if I can throw up a be right back thing here with some music. Let me see. Give me one moment, guys. I do like that. I do like that screen. I don't have a screen set up for the times where I'm not live. So here, hold the kitty. I gotta finish. I gotta come back and fix the living room for you. Real life, man. Real life is always going on behind the scenes. This is what I'll do. I'm gonna go to this main screen here. It's just a intro screen kind of thing. And the music's going to play for a bit. Hopefully it's going to be live split screen music. So hopefully that's good for y'all. And then I'll be right back. Hey, that's a good point, actually. I saw MF Great put that up. He said, put some of your gameplay up, Steel. Hey, you know what? That is a fabulous point. All right, as you can tell, I'm not a professional out here, bro. I'm just I'm trying to make it happen. I'm trying to make it happen. Let's see. That is an excellent point. I definitely should be able to do that. And I think I'll do I have some long form Mecha Break content? I don't think so. Let's see. I want to get up a good clip. I want to get up a good video for y'all. I don't expect it for it to take forever, but do I put up the clip of me getting smacked around in gears? Nah, I won't do that. There's that. What is this here? What game is this here? Oh, Stellar Blade, nice. I could definitely do that. And boom. And what I'll actually do is I'll put it on top of everything, so you guys can actually see it. Just watch me play a little bit of Stellar Blade. And then what I'll do is I'll add a be right back. BRB. We'll do Arial Black. I'm gonna make it go 200. Be right back. One of those where, you know, you just weren't expecting to have to throw a be right back up real quick. I do want to make sure everything is good for the kitty, because we just got her, so. And it has controller on screen and everything, but be right back. Yo, Mecha Break is fucking outstanding, bro. I love Mecha Break. That's something else that I wanted to kind of get into today. And honestly, I could just put that up on screen for you guys, but I don't know. I don't think I have any like gameplay recorded. Anyway, I'll be right back.
So sad. And all because of a misunderstanding.
All right. Hopefully, you're able to hear the game. I got nice here. Yes, you can. Cool. All right. I am back. The kitty is safe. Kitty got lost in the couch, bro. The cat went in literally the crevice of the couch. You know the part where the back pillow, the bottom pillow connect, because we have an L-shaped couch. So like in the very corner, if the pillow is pulled out a little bit, it is literally a divot. It's literally a hole. And I had pulled the couch apart and everything because I thought she was underneath it because she's small enough to get up underneath the couch and whatever. And lo and behold, I pulled the couch apart. I'm looking. I'm like, where's she at? And then lo and behold, I found her in the freaking corner. Freaking amazing. We just got her this week. She's a little over 8 weeks, I think. It's kittens are so, puppies are the same, but puppies aren't as like on top of everything. Like adventure. Sure, they'll adventure and stuff, but they're not like, oh, let me check out every crevice of your home to find out what I can get behind and what I can't get behind. Anyway, let's get back to it.
Thinks the initiative is only about single-player games. So since he's expecting the thing he liking money for that to happen. Lots of money. But his number one criticism is that he thinks the initiative is vague.
Incredibly vague. Too vague. Very vague and vague. It's vague. It's vague. That is vague. Too vague. Vaguely vague. Incredibly vague. Vaguely worded. Vague. 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 This is vague.
This goes on. Well, from Thor's perspective, his logic is pretty sound for this part.
Bitchy, MF Gray says, my profile picture cat just started going in the drop ceiling in the basement. She's killing me. Cats are crazy, dog. Like when you own a cat, you really truly understand the saying "curiosity killed the cat," because their curiosity, bro, will literally get them into some trouble. It is so fun. They're so precious, though. They're so precious. They're like the most sustainable, like self-sustainable creature, but at the same time, they need a little bit of guidance. They need a little help.
But the thing about logic is it's only as good as your assumed truths. And he said multiple times now that he thinks the initiative is only about single-player games. So since he's expecting the thing he made up, but that's not what the initiative is asking for, he thinks it's vague. Because for him, it is.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games. It is vague.
Yeah, in fact, if we look at that long definition again, let's add a subsection just for Thor. Single-player games with an online DRM check. Those would already fall under this broader category. So Thor is expecting this. Again, I don't know why, but instead he's seeing an initiative that covers all of this. That's why he calls it vague 50 times. The thought that we want what we're asking for and not the thing he made up seems to have never entered his head. The initiative is trying to stop the destruction of games. That's the whole point. It covers the types of games most in need of saving. If we only covered this tiny subsection, that would save maybe 1% or less of games that get destroyed. This would do almost nothing.
And it says commercial single-player games that are run locally but require a connection to the publisher for a DRM authentication check.
Not saying there isn't one, but I literally can't think of a game that meets this criteria. Every game I know of with single-player content that's been destroyed has been designed to run server-side, not locally. Older ones like that tend to have the DRM cracked, which is not an ideal solution, but that does stop game destruction. And newer ones with the Nouveau or something tend to have it removed by end of life. So I say less than 1%, but this might save 0% of games. I'm not sure. The initiative is actually not that vague. Though to be fair, some people did get hung up on this part. A reasonably playable or functional state. True, that is not 100% specific. There are reasons for that. You know how in law, police can stop a suspect with reasonable suspicion? Or a jury finds someone guilty beyond all reasonable doubt? That's because the number of situations you face are so varied that the law has to inject some common sense somewhere. It's the same with games. A multi-million-dollar MMO is a different animal from a budget arena shooter. It won't work making highly specific laws. That's one half of it. The other half of it is this sentence is an olive branch to publishers.
But I do think even in an MMO standpoint, like there should be a way to allow a third party to host servers themselves, or for you to be able to get a server and continue to privately run the game offline without any additional updates, just in its the state that it was when they took it offline. Whatever that state was. You still have AI in the game, you still have bots, so sure you might not have as much interactivity with like other people, but I think that there should be like a private option in those states. Now, I'm not saying that maybe is the perfect option. Again, I'm not a game dev, bro. I don't know what's going to take to do this. But if I ever created an online game, I would want my game to still be functional in an offline state in the case that somebody may not have the internet. I would want you to be able to connect to the internet one time, and if I decide that a decade later that, hey, I can't support the service for this anymore, or we're moving on to a different product, whatever the case may be, that I still give you, say, hey, this is the end state of the game. If you choose that you want to still play this game after this point, it is completely up to you. It's going to be running off a private server. Find the private server for that, whoever's willing to host it. However that goes into. Now, whether that starts leading into, oh, well, we're going to need access to the code and all these other things, yeah, that is a conversation that needs to be had, because I don't know if necessarily just giving people code for them to have access or whatever, or be able to do whatever needs to be done to run the game offline is essentially ideal either, because it's still people's intellectual property. We know that people can use things in a negative state. In a standpoint, reverse engineer the game and release their own version. I don't think that should be a worry, because these big publishers should be more of the ones that are like, you can reverse engineer whatever you want. You don't have you don't have the team that we do, which indie devs are proving to be, especially nowadays with all the tools and stuff that is available to them. They're proving that, hey, we don't have to per se do it the way that y'all do it. And it's additionally proving that maybe y'all have too much mess going on behind the scenes because of us running a tighter ship, we're able to get more done. We're able to focus more.
For complaints, this isn't specific enough. Okay, but you know what the alternative to this would be? Here, I'll show you. The game must be fully functional and contain 100% of all features as advertised. So as a publisher, which requirement would you rather meet? More importantly, this sentence shows the EU Commission that we're acting in good faith and trying to find a balance. I think some of the people asking for this to be more specific may not realize what they're asking for. I know some won't believe this, but a hell of a lot of thought went into the wording of the initiative. I think it's almost perfect. See, the initiative isn't even a proposed bill, it's a negotiation. Our side says we want games to be functional when publishers end support, so they need end-of-life plans. The industry's position is going to be against whatever we write, and claim they need no regulation whatsoever. Then the EU Commission gets to decide who is more in the right here. The Citizens Initiative is the opening arm.
Yeah, publishers going with the side that no regulations are needed and everything is fine, or just it doesn't need to be further regulated. Like, again, you might as well just slap the consumer in the face and tell her, like, you're just going to buy our stuff and you don't need to care about any of that extra stuff.
Offer in these negotiations. Trust me, the industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars will make its position known to the EU. We don't have to make their case for them. So for this negotiation, simple is good. That's why we're straight and to the point for what we want. Then the industry will argue against that. Then the EU Commission might look for compromises. You don't start a negotiation with a bunch of compromises, because then it'll get so watered down you won't save anything. Oh, and that long definition list are actually logical extensions of the simpler language used in the initiative. It's actually kind of slick. Plus, there's a character limit on these things. The EU Commission doesn't want you trying to cover 50 edge cases at this phase. Alright, so Pirate Software did not understand the initiative. But point two, he also did not make it easy for the truth to get out. I had never heard of him prior to all this, but during the campaign, I had dozens of people contacting me, telling me how wise and reasonable he is, how he's really pro-consumer and represents developers. I should really talk to him. Great, let's do it. So this was my first encounter of him.
Oh shit, no, this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. No, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I dropped the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass. The whole thing. That sounds stupid as shit.
Yeah, he went kind of hard there. Increasing number of video games designed to rely on the server publisher controls. How are publishers destroying games? An increasing number of video games are designed to rely on the server the publisher controls in order for the game to function. This acts as a lifeline to the game. When the publisher decides to turn this off, it is essentially cutting off life support to the game, making it completely inoperable to all customers. Companies that do this often intentionally prevent people from repairing the game, also by withholding vital components. When this happens, the game is destroyed, as no one can ever operate it again. Why should people care about publishers destroying video games? While video games are primarily just for entertainment and not of much consequence, the practice of a seller destroying a product someone has already paid for represents a radical assault on the consumer rights and even the concept of ownership itself. If this practice is not stopped, it may be codified into law and spread into other products for more importance over time, such as agricultural equipment, educational products, medical devices, etc. It is important consumers maintain a basic level of rights so as not to be overrun by predatory practices. Additionally, video games are unique creative works. The concept of destroying every existing copy of a book, song, film, etc. will be considered a cultural loss for society. While a less recognized medium, a less recognized medium, video games still deserve to be basic protections against the complete and willful destruction of many of its works. Which is funny. While a less recognized medium, video games is the number one form of entertainment. How does the number one form of entertainment have less consumer rights in it than anything else? That is crazy to me. That is so asinine. It is so ass backwards. And the publishers are deliberately saying, why would we give you guys ownership? Why? For what? What do you need ownership for? And it's like, because I bought it. You want to charge me more. You don't want to tell me, like when people defend the prices of things. Oh, well, back in my day, games were $80 to $100, and I just had to work my butt off to get that bread, bro. I don't know why you're complaining. You got all these other factors, bro. Inflation and, you got all the dollars kind of adding up. And it's like, bro, they're also not delivering as many physical copies. They're also have been deliberately removing the value that you had out of getting a physical game, whether it was art books or whether it was manuals, whether it was stickers, whether it was posters. There used to be posters and stuff in game cases that used to be super dope as far as a representation to get that game. Like that made you have, once I started noticing that I wasn't getting anything additionally in my case outside of a manual, I was like, what's the point of having a physical game? I liked having physical because of the additional things that you guys provided in here. Yeah, the manual is great. Maybe I want to frame the manual. But even if you're not even providing a manual, it's like, bro, why would I keep buying physical? And if I got to download the game, bro, the first time that I got a game home that was physical and I had to download it to my Xbox 360, I was like, what's the point? I might as well just download the entire game and keep it digital. And that way I can just access it whenever I want. That's not quite how things work, right? So, E-Ranks says, feels like Pirate Software really went overboard with that take, but hey, that's YouTube. I mean, a lot of people go overboard with a lot of things, I think that's just humanity. People go to the nth level, right? Or they don't truly understand what the point was. Like in this case, if I was Pirate Software, I had his knowledge, his implications, all his criteria, I would have asked dude, like, yo, I think some of what you're speaking to may be crazy. Let's get in a chat. Let's get online. Let me bring you on. I see that you've reached out to other people. Let me bring you on and let's chop it up, bro. So I can really get an understanding of what you're trying to get across. And then maybe I could bring some of my points of contention up to you and say, hey, these are my issues. What are you really trying to get across? And then you can have a proper conversation, because at the end of the day, I would think that someone like Thor, as an example, at least from what I have observed, would care that somebody is trying to do something for the consumer. Again, it's also weird for people to get so caught up in all the nuances of things. Like, bro, not everybody has all the answers. Not everybody, people try their best to think things through clearly. And it shouldn't take for somebody to be extremely perfect for them to be able to get their message across. Like, that's the thing about the whole gray area side of thing that me and Paul talk about all the time. When you get into the gray area, when you get into the minutia of things, there has to be gray area in politics, religion, entertainment, whatever it may be, because it should not turn into, I hate you for thinking this way, you're an idiot because you feel that way, or, oh, I need to make this extremely personal because it's not, what you're saying isn't making sense to me. It should be like, nah, bro, I mean, maybe I don't agree with that, but I do agree with these things. Oh, hey, you know, I see what you're trying to go for, but I feel this way, you know? And we can, at the end of the day, we can walk away and say, oh, you know, we agree to disagree. It is what it is. At least you brought somebody on and you're working towards your own merits for what you believe in. Hey, if you are consumer facing, if you are trying to do what's right as far as gamers in this medium, and again, it's so asinine to me when people like the industry even treats us as enjoyers of the entertainment or just of this medium like it's less than in comparison to anything else. People love music, people love cars, people love working out, people love all these other, you'll sit here and binge a TV show, bro. You have no rights to a TV show. There is no guarantee that you'll be able to watch Friends tomorrow. You know what I mean? If they decide to pull that down. Now, if you got the box set, cool. But not every TV show has a DVD for it. So I may not be able to watch that years from now. There are shows that came on back in the day. Cartoon Network didn't put all their shows on disc or whatever the case, or on VHS, at least from what I know. And again, I've been a digital enjoyer for some time. But I don't have a way to own all the episodes of Ed, Ed, and Eddie unless I go download them from somewhere, maybe. You know what I mean? Like and it may not even be every single episode. Like that's the thing. Like there has not been an even exchange across the board. So I don't know. Ron says, shouldn't digital be cheaper? Digital should be cheaper. That's the other thing. Bro, all that production cost has been rolled into you now just releasing a digital product versus you having to create a disc, put said game on disc because it's already digital. You're creating it on a PC. You have to put it on something for it to become something. So you have to put it on disc. Then you got to create the case. Then you got to create the artwork. Then you got to create the paper. Then you got to put all that stuff together. Then you got to make a deal with the different stores that you're going to be sending this to. Then you got to, finagle and haggle and all these different things that you got to do with that. Then you got to worry about transportation. Then you got to worry about, what if my boat in the middle of the ocean while I'm delivering these discs? What if this random crate falls off this boat and now I can't get this delivery done? None of that is happening much less of it is happening, especially when you see that the numbers are telling you that 80% of people are buying their form of entertainment digitally versus the 20%, at least in gaming for sure. Let's see. Then it says, because it's still viewed as kids' plaything by legislators, and I think that's dumb. And because I think gaming has been beyond that, right? What else chat talking about here? E-Rank says, true, why not bring him on to interview him strictly from a content creation perspective? That would be a good idea. Never mind just getting to a person-to-person understanding. And that's the main thing. Like, I get, bro, the thing that I would never get is people being so fucked up online that they're not willing to have a conversation, right? That they're not willing to come to an understanding because of all these other people. And it's a true fact of life. If multiple people have fucked you over, again, let's do relationship. If somebody's fucked you over multiple times, it is very unlikely that you will entertain giving them more time on the back end, right? It's like you've tried and tried. You get to the end, and now this person want to give you time. It's like, bro, I don't want to give you no fucking time no more. Like, yo, girl, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? I see a lot of people get online and do the same thing, or get online and say, oh, well, your opinion is different from mine, so I hate you. I think you're an idiot. I think you're stupid. I think everything that you stand for makes no fucking sense. And it's like, bro, what do you mean? I never sat here and told you your opinion was stupid. I never sat here and said that I have to be the end all to be all. And maybe I don't have all the information, but I feel like as people, our objective should always be, hey, how can we help each other grow? Now, if that person doesn't want to grow, you see that they're a troll, whatever the case may be, hey, you chalk it up for what it is. You don't have to reach everybody. The same way, not everybody got to tune in to Live a Split Screen because, we talk about games for 2 hours at the beginning of our show and then get into the news for the week, and we're spitting bars about things that we truly believe in. Like, this isn't like it's not a makeshift thing. And I think that I believe for the genuine people that is their perspective. Hey, I'm just putting my ideas out there. I'm putting my thoughts out there. I'm just, that's why a lot more people are scary about getting online or just putting themselves out, because everybody's got to judge somebody. It's like, dog, I don't treat the janitor any different than I treat a millionaire. Point blank, period. You can have the biggest house on the lot, or you can have a 300 square foot home. It does not matter to me, bro. You will get the same love and get the same respect, the same admiration from me than anybody else. Are you supporting yourself? Are you supporting your family? Are you loving those around you? Are you walking around with a good heart? I'm not saying that you got to love everybody, bro, or care for everybody. You don't. But damn, do I think that things are just worth a conversation. It's like, there's already enough hard conversation to have. You can't have a conversation about politics because everybody feels the way that they do. Point blank, period. There's evidence to back up why people feel the way they do. And the worst that typically tends to happen is that people get in an argument and ends up hating each other. Religion's the same thing. People can't discuss religion openly because everybody has their form of what is right. I'm right, you're wrong. I can't ever see it your way. And if you don't see it the way that I do or believe in it the way that I do, then I don't want to hear it. And people are now taking that into gaming as well, or have been taking it into gaming. And that's asinine to me too. They take it into sports, they take it into anything that you can have a liking, and there's an opposite side. People have to be, oh, this is the gospel, and if there's any other information out there, it can't be true. I don't want to hear it. You're stupid for believing in that. Like, oh, what are we talking about?
Entire ass. The whole thing. That sounds
I
stupid
agree.
as shit.
The government is lost on this topic.
Oh, yeah. I can see why people...
You can tell that the government's lost on the topic from how the FTC handlings were going. They don't know what the fuck to think. They thought Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard was going to give them monopoly over the industry. They were taking Microsoft to task for doing things that they hadn't done in 30 years. 20 plus years. It's like, bruh, what are we doing? You're making me make concessions for things that aren't even proven. Oh, the cloud. Oh, you need to get your cloud infrastructure and bring it over to Ubisoft so we can get this deal going through because you're going to have them. It's like, what? NVIDIA is smoking y'all's boots with GeForce Now. So is that the thing that you need to be worried about, or they're just trying to give people more options? Like, they don't even know what's best for the consumer in this happenstance, in that happenstance. It's crazy.
People like him. It's like listening to Mr. Rogers. As you can imagine, we've been less than thrilled that Thor here has become the dominant voice of the campaign, especially when he doesn't understand it. Though I did find the use...
It's worse because the dude is literally saying that's dumb, that's stupid. Again, you can feel however you want. I just think that maybe you should lift up the blinds, pull back the curtain a little bit, especially when it comes to game preservation or just prevent preservation of anything, or when somebody's trying to do something that they feel is right for the consumer. Again, I'm not saying that every person has the right idea, but somebody that's been trying this hard, I think it's worth, hey, maybe I should do a little bit of research. Hey, maybe I should find out what the true intention is. Hey, maybe I need to actually see why this person feels as passionate as they do about this topic. Hey, again, like I mentioned earlier, maybe I should bring them on board and say, look, this is the problems that I have with what you were saying. This is the negative impact that I think that it will have. And I see that you've been trying to do ABC things. I see that you're trying to get this message across. What are you really trying to say? And let them explain themselves on a large platform. And you can either choose to embarrass yourself if that you end up embarrassing yourself, or that person ends up backing down, and maybe y'all end up coming together with a solution in that same stream of something that could be extremely possible. And now and then you introduce a millions, potentially, at least 100K people, at least, of, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we're thinking. This is what we're trying to get behind. What do you guys think? And then more people can try to provide input. Hey, this is how we think. That's how we enforce change. That's how we figure out what is the best route. It shouldn't just be up to one person to define whatever the future route is for us. In anything. MF Great says, the fact that they didn't try to cap Game Pass prices or regulate it is nuts. Bro, that's what I'm saying. That should have been, hey, for the next 10 years, your Game Pass can't go higher than $20. Too bad, too sad. You want to make this deal go through? This is what we need to do. That'd be the easiest thing. Let them decide what's going to work for them or not. Then MF Great says, constructive criticism goes a long way for conversation. And that's all there should be. Constructive criticism should always be okay. Personal attacks, doxing, whatever the next levels are, that's not the direction that we're trying to go, bro. Like, that's not what we're trying to get into. We're trying to have a constructive conversation and figure out what is the best route to move forward. And if you just don't believe in what I'm doing, then you don't. But that's why I think, again, this is why people feel that the way they do about how Pirate Software is approaching the situation, right? Again, it's about how you, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it.
Car salesman part amusing, since if people could read my mind, they would understand how much I dread anything resembling sales or marketing or just trying to push things on people who aren't interested in them. I'm not exaggerating when I said I've hated having to run this campaign.
This is the most uneducated take I have ever seen in games.
Now, as for that one, I do have a bachelor's in criminal justice, which might explain why I'm coming at this from very different angles than he is. Focusing on people having rights and checking what consumer law actually says.
That's actually good backing. It makes sense.
Though I think I know where that comment is coming from because I've gotten it before. Here's what I think is happening. Online-only games have a client and a server, but a lot also have middleware that developers don't have permission to distribute to customers, or depend on microservices they have no control over, and the server software isn't even designed to run on a customer system. You can't just cut out the middleware and remove the microservices because they're integrated too deeply. That would still leave the game bricked and could take months to fix and be a lot of work. So I think some devs think we're saying all they need to do is just release the server binaries at end of life, and yay, everything is solved. And that's why they think we're ignorant. Well, for some games that could work, but not ones like these. Plus, that's not what we're saying. First off, we're not even mandating the methodology because, again, doing that could run afoul of copyright law. Second, this whole diagram is looking at a game that exists right now and was never designed to have an end-of-life plan. Those might not be salvageable. So what we're saying is we're taking a game in the future. No code has been written yet. It's still just a design document.
About for the future.
Okay, so we have the client portion as usual.
It'd be nice.
Then we have the server logic. Now we'll bring in our usual middleware and microservice vendors. Nope. Stop. Now, the EU says we can't just brick customer purchases like we've been doing if we want to sell our games there. So that means we can't keep making all these same deals the way we have been. Now we need to renegotiate with the vendors to allow for an end-of-life build with their software, or redesign things to make the microservices easier to sever at end of life. And vendors probably will renegotiate. Otherwise, they'll start losing sales to everyone who wants to sell games in the EU. But say a vendor refuses anyway. Sure. Then we need to go with vendor B, who will offer EU-compliant solutions because they will be happy to take money away from their competitor, vendor A. Or maybe we need to abandon one of the microservices altogether and come up with an in-house alternative that is compatible with an end-of-life plan. And if the server can't run on consumer hardware, well, maybe now we code it in a way that's more versatile and can be compiled to run a stripped-down version with less features for the customer machine at end of life. Or hey, if that's not doable, then we scrap that, but still give customers some form of server software at end of life because now we've planned for this, and inform them it requires specialized hardware, and they're on their own for getting it working. And these are all just suggestions. The publisher would get to decide how they want to comply. Thor is not alone in developers trashing what I just said. I don't know why, but some of the nastiest insults I've received on the entire campaign have been when I try to explain this is what we're asking for. This part in particular triggers some people to no end.
That video made me actually mad. Like real mad. Not like fake memes mad, like actually mad. Like I'm actually mad.
Upsetting people is not our goal, by the way. We actually want this transition to be as easy as possible for publishers and developers. However, we are...
That's the thing that's weird to me. How are you mad about something that you didn't even have a genuine conversation with the dude with? Have a true understanding? Obviously, there's a disconnect. Bro, it's like some people that have all this intellect don't have a basic understanding of how to interact with people or to try to get an understanding of a situation. And I get if you just deliberately don't want to have an understanding. I can't do nothing about that, and nobody else can do anything about you not being willing to have a conversation. But doesn't that say something about you too? That you try to speak against? That you don't like when people do that to you? I think it's something to consider.
Are stubbornly against proposals that won't stop commercial games being destroyed. Because that's the whole point. Anyway, you heard Thor's comments for me. In light of that, I think I've been pretty diplomatic. I am just trying to get this initiative passed. If that means I have to get insulted all along the way, okay. So with that in mind, I reached out to him, not expecting to change his mind, but to at least clarify things since he got so much wrong. If you're gonna hate us, at least hate us for what we're actually doing, not for things that are made up about us.
I got a message from Ross. There were many other misunderstandings in your video. It's clear that you hate the initiative, and I doubt I would change that. That is correct. I would encourage you to at least hate it for what it accurately is. I do.
He says that so confidently. Oh yeah, you knocked it out of the park. You understood everything.
In other words, the customer is told explicitly that their access ends at the time of payment. Most live service games do not do this, which could run afoul of EU law. Most is patently incorrect.
Patently incorrect? Okay, for those who don't know much about live service games, that's like saying the Earth isn't round. He says verifiably false things so confidently. If his viewers don't know any better, how can I blame anyone for believing what he says about the initiative when he talks like that?
That's
it's incredible. And he does not wish to discuss this with me or anyone else in the initiative. Why not?
Would you consider reaching out and talking to Ross about it? No. And the reason why is because I found his entire statement over the YouTube incredibly disingenuous.
Yes, this issue which has bothered me since...
Ladies and gentlemen, can we real quick? Because this is something that I found. People say, and people say this and then don't understand, like, because I know I've used it too, and I do feel like people are genuinely being disingenuous. But then there's also like evidence, like when somebody has said something enough times or has been consistent with something, it's like at that point, like Refor, we can use Refor as an example. And again, I'm not trying to throw any shade on dude's name. He's successful doing what he's doing. He has the ability to be at home and get into it, man. Shout out to the beans. But I don't necessarily feel like Refor is just being disingenuous. I feel like he may be ill-informed. I feel like he may have the wrong opinion. And I feel like he should be critiqued for his opinions, right? With the platform that he has and everything. But I don't necessarily feel disingenuous. And disingenuous means not candid or sincere, typically by pretending that one knows less about something than one really does. He was being somewhat disingenuous as well as cynical. Similar. Dishonest, deceitful, underhanded, and duplicitous. I don't think that this dude was doing any of those things, Thor. Pirate software? To not want to have a conversation with somebody because you feel like they're being disingenuous. That kind of tells me that you just think the dude's a liar. That she's just making stuff up. That he's just been spending all this time trying to attack something or trying to get a point across about something that he truly did not believe in. I wouldn't describe that as accurate either. Wouldn't that be disingenuous from your part? But again, if that's what you truly believe, I can't say that. Interesting.
Since I was a teenager and I've spent 10 years on trying to push back against is me being disingenuous. Where's this coming from? Well, it comes from a slide I had in my promotional video, the half-joke slide. He hated this, and I think he may have a rather privileged view of politics.
You want to put together legislation because it's the right thing to do.
We did.
Not because you can convince legal representatives to do it no matter what.
It's both. These are not mutually exclusive things.
The idea that we're going to go through this because it's an easy win, but not the right win? No, dude.
Oh, God. So he misunderstood the initiative and misunderstood our intentions. And in his words, this is why he refuses to have a dialogue with the movement. So now I have to address it. Let's keep it basic. He calls me disingenuous, implying I don't believe what I'm pushing for, that this is some sort of con. That's uncharitable to the point of being silly. Besides video evidence going back 10 years, this is not a hard concept to grasp. I hate seeing creative works needlessly destroyed when people are trying to save them, and video games are where I see that happen the most. Of course I believe in what I'm advocating for. Maybe start from there. I'm a little surprised that didn't sink in.
The idea of getting it to pass with an easy win instead of pass because it's good is a problem to me. Absolute problem.
That's not how politics works.
Are you stuck on that,
Do you think things pass because they're good ideas? Tell that to people who still have lead in their water. A lot of gamers are jaded with good cause. The industry has been shaking them down every which way. The perception that it's hopeless to protect our rights against billion-dollar conglomerates is often correct. If I told people this would pass just because it's a good idea, I wouldn't believe me. This slide is a half joke, but it's also some totally cynical reasons that are often true to let people know we have a chance and this isn't utterly hopeless. Do you think I or most people in the...
And it says the reason the ECI could pass, politicians like easy wins. Politicians mostly don't care about video games. The law is already unclear on this practice. The initiative is in line with other consumer policies. It's a diversion from more serious topics.
Reasons that are often true to let people know we have a chance and this isn't utterly hopeless. Do you think I or most people in the movement give a damn why politicians might pass something good? What we care about is that they pass something good. We don't need them to be true believers. We need them to pass good law. This is as soft as it possibly gets in politics. I think most politicians would find this slide funny. It sounds like he's offended I have a low opinion of the political process. Well, I'm the one in the trenches here. I'm not sure if he's upset at me or just upset at reality. Yeah, I am too. Anyway, he went on to delete my reply to him. Thankfully, someone backed it up, and I figured, okay, he hates this. It was thrust upon him by his viewers. I'll just leave him be. Well, that was a mistake on my part, because then he went on to make more videos about me and the movement, now reaching over 1 million views, still broadcasting the wrong information on us. I guess I'm being petty here, but this is alien thinking to me. Why would you call someone out, then run away from a conversation with them when they say there's a misunderstanding, but then go on to make more videos calling them out? Sir, that is not gentlemanly behavior. All right, I know this is going on too long, so I'll get to the final point. Thor misunderstood the initiative, misunderstood our intentions, and misinformed a lot of people about both. But the irony is, I think he would have hated it even more if he did understand it. Because first, he doesn't see any of this as a problem.
Gaming isn't in need of saving. No, it's not a form of planned obsolescence. It's called the game no longer being profitable and we turn it off. No games are being destroyed here. These are live service games.
Yeah, you heard him. No games are being destroyed. Does he just say anything? Is that why he's popular? More to the point, and what I wish he included in his main video, is he supports games being destroyed.
A very strange demand from people in the gaming industry where live service games should live forever, whether in the hands of the developer or otherwise. And I can't get behind that shit. I think live service games getting sunsetted is fine. I've always thought that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I have no problems with the end of a video game.
See, I wish...
I have a problem with the end of a video game. I do, as a consumer. For something that I paid for an example, Black Desert Online, right? I fully understand that Black Desert Online is a massively multiplayer online game. And the main premise of the game is it being massively multiplayer online. That's not to be said that if there was a end of life process or something that you could do or just an end of life consideration, that there couldn't be a single player version of that game, right? Because arguably, outside of the market, which is an integral part of the game, not saying that that couldn't be, again, that would all be things that would be rolled into that end of life, right? Hey, these are the things that you can get now. We're not going to change anything else about the game, but you can still go grind areas. You can still, and mind you, you do have to connect to a server for these things. But if somebody had the access to maintain a second or a third party server that you could still connect to, although it be a third party, and you as the consumer have the understanding that, hey, this game is no longer being supported by the main publisher. Therefore, if I run into spyware issues, if I run into hacking issues, if I run into whatever the case may be, that is going to be fully on me. I am getting what I can out of this experience. I am playing it for what it is. I am somebody that has spent hundreds of dollars on Black Desert Online since 2017, right? It would be sad to know that I can no longer access the content that I purchased, cosmetics, whatever the case, storage, whatever the case, after that game goes away. It would be sad. It would be unfortunate. I would feel some type of way. But I can't just ask that of them now, because that's not how it started. That wasn't part of how you built this game. You didn't have to take that into consideration. Things have been the way that they have been. So when you reach end of life, that's just going to be end of life. Again, I don't think that that's a perfect scenario, but I am finding it hard to see ways that it would not be beneficial to the consumer to give them a way to still access the content that they paid for. Point blank, period.
He started his big YouTube video with that message instead of deleting it. Instead, he presented himself as pro-preservation and not wanting the medium to die out.
It's incredibly important to me that we keep making games and that the next generation has the tools to do so that our medium doesn't die out. And it never will. And that's the whole intention of all of this.
So he doesn't want games to die out, except he's fine with that. I think there's some cognitive dissonance going on there.
Yes.
And he's against killing single-player games that only have a DRM check, okay? But then says people who buy single-player games with more than a DRM check are stupid, and he doesn't play those.
I don't buy games that are always online single-player games. I refuse to play those because it's stupid.
That's some tough talk coming from a fan of Diablo 4.
It's actually really freaking good, dude. The game's fantastic. Itemization is great. Systems design is great. Storyline has been fantastic. The characters are good. The voice acting is great.
So is he saying he wouldn't have played Diablo 4's single-player campaign if it didn't have forced multiplayer also, even though he's praising it and appears to be playing solo? Yeah. Or is he saying that people that just wanted to play Diablo 4 single-player are stupid? I admit, I got lost on his stance there.
He's cooking.
What's more clear to me is we're not on the same side. Here's a list of some popular games that are all at risk of being destroyed at some time in the future. The Stop Killing Games movement sees any of these being destroyed as a problem, and they're exactly the kinds of games that would start being protected if the initiative passed. Now, a lot of these do have single-player campaigns, but I believe they all require more than a simple DRM check. He says over and over that his problem with the initiative is the wording, and it's vague. But there is no wording he would like that also saves games like these.
If it has a single-player component, you have to I should still be able to access that single-player component moving forward. There's no excuse for that. Whether I gotta say, hey, end of life, your saves are now going to be local to your machine. Okay. I mean, at least I have that understanding, right? At least you give me that option. If something happens to my local save, I am no longer going to have access to said character, but it doesn't mean I don't have access to the game anymore.
Because he's on the opposite side of this. If he's totally fine with games like these being disabled forever, well, guess what? That's the position of the industry causing this entire problem in the first place. And that's the final point. Thor says he disagrees with how we're going about trying to end game destruction, but he also disagrees with the goal itself. No, wait, I want to be fair. He's only against 99% of it minus that tiny provision he made up. So once you understand that, then of course it makes sense that he's against the Stop Killing Games movement. Because we're trying to stop killing games. Now, if you're in Thor's camp and think killing all these games is fine and are as things should be, okay, then it's just a values clash.
And look, as I mentioned, Black Desert. Yeah. Again, if it has a single player component, there should be a way for me to still access it.
And yeah, you'll hate the initiative too. I'm not trying to tell you otherwise. But if you think you might have been misled about what the initiative is, hey, maybe look at it again. Tell others about it. Help undo some of the damage. There is still time. It closes July 31st. Thor lying about what the campaign is about, remember, second definition, has caused more damage to it than anything else I'm aware of. Now, I've heard some people say, no, it caused a Streisand effect and led to more coverage. Well, if you look at the signature rate, it suggests the opposite. I've also been told a big streamer, like in that group I mentioned earlier, you know, the kind that are so big they could end this, avoided talking about Stop Killing Games because of Thor's take on it. Remember, at the time he did this, Pirate Software was a well-respected developer looked up to by the internet community for having good takes on gaming. And I was, and still am, the weirdo with no credentials other than not wanting games destroyed. So with Thor being seen as the smartest guy in the room and firmly against the initiative, I think that led some internet figures to not want to touch this, lest they be seen like a fool in the eyes of Thor. Now, as I understand it, that risk may have lowered since then, but it doesn't really matter if nobody else talks about it, because he was there to kill the momentum when we needed it the most, and we never got it back. Okay, that's it on him. I did not enjoy having to do that segment, but I've had to do a lot of things on this campaign I don't like. Believe it or not, my goal was not to tarnish Thor's reputation. That's incidental. I don't care. He can be hailed as a national hero. Whatever.
Yeah, again, like, people can feel how it's not about the right or wrong side in this, although it's kind of blatant that one side is being way more critical and not even taking in consideration of what the future can hold. It's like, I mean, you're contradicting yourself. You believe in game preservation, but you want new games to be made, but you also believe in ending games. Well, games can't last forever. So we can't come up with an option moving forward. Not saying that all these other games have to do this, because we get that that wasn't something that was considered or built in from the very beginning. But moving forward, we can't ask these publishers to make sure that, hey, my purchase for said product is my purchase for that product. I should be able to access it 20 years from now offline, off of my hard drive, download, play the single player experience, and enjoy it for what it is.
The goal was to expose the damage done to the campaign to try and fix it. I do think he's someone who would have defended the divine right of kings hundreds of years ago, but I don't wish him ill will. On the
MF says, very cool you covered this. Hey, man, you know, I wanted to do something different. I was going to watch it anyway because, again, prepping for the show, it is going to be a topic. It's going to be very interesting to get Pong's thoughts on it as well. I do think that me and Pong are probably going to end up being consistent about how we feel about this take. Because, again, we've mentioned on Live and Split Screen, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. UK time every Saturday morning. Real quick plug there. If you're already here, hit that like and sub button if you like what I'm doing. But I think it is going to lead into that, because that is something that both me and Pong believe in, is that digital ownership, and whatever is going to lead to the path of us having true digital ownership, the same way it being why people want physical media. It's that feeling of ownership. Hey, I know that I can access this content no matter what. If I if I got to download it from my profile, whatever the case might do, I know that I can download this whenever I can. And if you're telling me that the game is coming to an end of service, I'm not going to be able to download the game off of your server, then that should at least give me an opportunity to download the game and back it up to maybe my personal drives, my personal server, which I think is something else that's going to be a huge thing for us in the future, where there's going to be more and more people, families, homes that have their own personal server that you pull things from. You don't have to store everything here, like right here on your current PC. You have a server blade that you can access that covers your home. I could see that being an option. And I think being able to download your media or your content off of that is ideal.
Contrary, I hope he finds some peace of mind. Now you might be thinking, is this campaign really so fragile that one big streamer can sink it just by misrepresenting it? Oh, yeah, it totally is. It's been an uphill battle almost every step of the way. It sinks or swims to the whims of what big streamers do. It kind of reminds me of the Greek gods. That part about easy wins, that's for the politicians, not us. Ours are hard as nails. There are reasons it took me 9 years before I was ever able to actually do anything on this. It's a miracle it's gotten as far as it has. Now, I've seen people ask, if the initiative fails, then what's next? I've tried to explain this before. There is no next. What's next was a year and a half ago with all those other things we've tried. We're at the final phase now. The European Citizens Initiative is our last possible chance to change anything. See, there are things governments and consumer groups are doing, and then there are things that us, the general public, are doing.
And at that point, and I feel like essentially where he's coming from is, if he's been at it this long and it hasn't garnered the traction, or it hasn't caused people to step up at this point, then we're leaving it to our current regime and big corporations like a Microsoft to establish what that is going to be for the future. And people are already apprehensive, and people already don't know what you want as a consumer. You don't like big tech getting involved. You don't like big corporations to get involved. But then when smaller people try to speak up and say, hey, we need to look at things differently, it gets pushed down, and you get told that you're crazy. And then when a big corp steps in and does it the way that they want to do it, oh man, I missed how things were back in the day when we had actual ownership, man. Meanwhile, you had plenty of opportunities to try to bring that to the forefront. And this is just one dude, as he explained earlier in the video. This is one dude who has went to all these different platforms, tried to get people to jump on board, and it hasn't happened. And that's because there's not enough bigger names that are consistent in this messaging. If you would have had a couple buddies behind them that were bigger streamers, constantly putting out there this, hey, this is what's going on, having a bigger conversation, if people truly understood, and maybe I could even be getting this entire thing wrong. I don't think that I am. I think everything that Accursed is saying here is completely accurate. As far as the concerns, it needs to be looked at. And I'm not hearing him say that, oh, this is the end all to be all and this is the only way to do it. He's just saying, like, man, this needs to be freaking looked at, dog. There should be no reason why we're paying for product and it's being taken away.
After July, I see nothing left for us. So does that mean Stop Killing Games has failed? Well, no, nobody knows yet. We won't know the answer to that for a long time, maybe years. Government moves slowly. The initiative will be what's failed, not everything else. Without the initiative, we still have about 5 other chances for this to work. We have the consumer agencies in France, Germany, and Australia, and possibly help from the BEUC and the UFC Que Choisir, though those are iffier. But all their work is underway. It's out of our hands now. Now, I've heard some say, what if we launch the initiative again? Well, someone else can try that, not me. I tried my absolute damnedest writing off the publicity of the cruise shutdown and barely got halfway. It took a chunk out of my life with almost nothing to show for it. No way am I going to spearhead something like this again. I saw this as my only shot. I took it to the best of my ability. That wasn't good enough. I have no reason to think that doing it again will be successful. On the contrary, I think it would do far worse. And that doesn't mean I'm being defeatist. I will continue saying yes to almost any opportunity that emerges until July 31st. I have some skepticism, but I am still available for Stop Killing Games until then. Though remember, you don't have to go through me at all. You just have to send people to the initiative. After that, no, I'm done. In fact, I think some people might be surprised just how done I am after July. It's not that I will have changed my mind on game destruction, except that there's nothing left after that. So I don't want to waste even more of my life on this. I've paid my dues. My income's dropped significantly since I started this because I haven't had time to make more fun videos which people would rather watch, and I don't blame them one bit. So besides being sick of running this thing, I have to make it for lost time so I can pay rent. Plus, believe it or not, I want time to actually play games and not just fight to keep them all the time. I'll still do the bare minimum if it helps. For example, Germany's consumer agency contacted me at one point because they wanted more information on the crew's EULA for their investigation, so I assisted with that. That was surprising because I have no authority on that at all, and I would have thought they would have had better sources than me, but yeah, I can do pilot light activity like that if it really helps, just no more campaigning. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against people doing more after July, I just think your odds will be horrendous, and I don't want to dump my time into doomed causes. If the law on game destruction in the EU and Australia was as locked down as it is in the United States, I never would have even started this campaign. Now, I've said this initiative resulted in almost nothing. Well, we did get a little bit. For me personally, I got the feeling of knowing I did everything I could, so I won't have any more nagging doubts like, oh, if only I had tried harder, I could have saved video games. No, I can close the book on that. So I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror after this. That's a plus for me and anyone else who tried their best. About the only other thing I think the initiative accomplished was we inadvertently saved 2 games. This is hearsay again, but according to an insider at the company, Ubisoft announced offline modes for The Crew 2 and Motorfest because they were afraid the European Citizens Initiative would pass and thought this might kill some of the momentum. Ironically,
what's crazy about this is that why couldn't they have done this from jump? Why does it take some form of legislation? Why does it take for people to be in an uproar for you to even consider this to be an option? Like that is his entire point. We have to wait until things become something had to do with law, or you can get into some serious trouble because people are questioning, for you to just do the thing that was probably right.
I don't think they needed to have bothered. We were already losing momentum when they announced that because, well, you know why. But not killing games is the whole point of this, and I guarantee you Ubisoft had no end-of-life plans for those games prior to this movement. They were absolutely slated to die. Now, if I could have picked any 2 online games to save, I can't say those would have been my choices, but that is something tangible that the initiative changed. Assuming Ubisoft isn't lying. At the time of this video, they still haven't delivered on it yet. So is that it? Is that all the initiative accomplished? Well, without the signatures, sadly, yes, I think so. Now, some people might say, no, we did more than that. We shifted the narrative. So what? My only goal with this was to stop games from being destroyed. All the talk in the world won't fix that without action. Without the initiative, any victory we get is going to come from one of these 5 paths we opened up. Speaking of which, what should we expect from that? I honestly don't know. I give all of these coin toss odds. I do think it is highly, highly likely Ubisoft is going to get fined for something by more than one agency. Don't take my word for it. German channel WBS Legal thinks the same. The problem in their eyes is that Ubisoft shut down The Crew with only 3 months' notice, and they should have provided more like 2 years. Yeah, hear me now, quote me later. If all that comes from Stop Killing Games is companies in the EU need to give 2 years' notice before they shut down a game, then I will consider it an abject failure. It won't save games, that wasn't our goal, it'll piss off companies, everybody loses. But that's the risk of making this work under existing law rather than proposing sensible law under the initiative. Fingers crossed the agencies make a better decision than that. Now, since this is a wrap-up video and I don't know what the outcome will be, I might as well present both scenarios. First, if we win and have a clear victory through one of these avenues, oh boy. If I think I have threats and hate mail now, I bet I haven't seen anything yet. I'd like to say whatever happens because of these avenues, we didn't write them and never had any authority here. All we could do was report the problem. The European Citizens Initiative is what was written by the movement, and that's what's failing. Now, for people who want my head over this, I doubt they'll care, but I wanted to point that out. I'll say right now, the transition could be bumpy. It all depends on how hard the industry fights it. And yes, it's possible it could end some games on death row prematurely. So games that were designed to die could still die, but after that, almost all games would start being protected. Because I know there's some clown that's going to find one example of a game shutting down early and then use that as proof that enforcing the law is bad, even though the industry was going to kill it anyway. That's the logic I'm expecting. So there could be bumps, but give it 3 to 5 years and it will smooth out, become an industry standard, and then you'll have people who were against it claiming they were for it all along. Hey, remember how there were people speaking out against letting customers refund games before 2014, and they're kind of quiet now? I do. I think it'll be a lot like that. So that's if we win. If we lose, in other words, all 5 of these avenues get shot down, well, then things are going to be almost exactly like they are right now. Except then there will be no pretending we have consumer rights. If you're a gamer, it will be codified into law that you're a consumer chattel who doesn't deserve to keep what you buy. Or if you're renting, informed of how long you get to rent.
Such a crazy concept.
So, cool. The games industry brought back one of feudalism's greatest hits. Now, even that reality I consider preferable to what's going on now, because then we at least know we're legally screwed. Besides the obvious, what drove me crazy about this issue and the reason I started this campaign was because in many countries, no laws were ever passed on this. Nobody voted on this. Companies just started taking away your purchases. Nobody stopped them, and it slowly got normalized. It's felt like a coup.
Yeah.
So the idea that hundreds of games were being destroyed just because we're letting it happen drove me up the wall.
Thing.
If we're screwed, let's be told that to our faces and not have
all right,
right here, pal.
Let's drop into this one. This is from Moist Critical Penguins 0. We'll jump into this one as well. Let me go ahead and grab the link and drop that into the show here real quick, because I want to make sure that everybody gets their just dues. It was a good one, man. I think that was good stuff. I mean, again, he hit on a lot of important points, nothing that I necessarily disagree with, and I think it does deserve more attention, man. It's a reality that's coming up a lot sooner than we can expect. The biggest reason I'm bringing this up because he is somebody that has a lot more reach. Again, this video was just put up a day ago and has already over 2.5 million views. It also has 16.9 million subs. So let's see what Moist got.
Tough guy. You feeling lucky? Yeah, that's right. Spirit Fingers. Do you know why? Because it's been about 30 hours since I last slept, and I've done 3 different intros, all of which crash and burned, and I am off my gourd, so now I'm going wacko mode. But, even in my sleep-deprived state, I am still lucid enough to recognize how cattywampus the AAA gaming space has become. Like, the gaming industry has so many things that I have bitched and moaned about. Probably the biggest practice that I've been most vocal about, not exactly shy on, is the topic of "you will own nothing and be happy." The Ubisoft motto. God rest that company's soul. What a pile of dog shit. But it's not just Ubisoft. That has become a prevalent business strategy across the gaming industry. You will own nothing. You will be happy. You're basically, you come away with the idea of ownership of whatever games you purchase. I've worn this topic out more than a fleshlight in a frat house, but it is something I am very passionate about. The gaming industry is getting away with more and more garbage where they'll take a shit in your mouth and you're expected to thank them for adding some flavor to your taste buds. It's terrible. And there is an initiative that has been aiming to fight back against a lot of these practices that I think really need some big overhaul. And it's an initiative that I think a lot of you are probably very familiar with. It's called Stop Killing Games. And I've followed it since its inception. I've talked about it on stream quite a few times, though this is my first video going over it. And I regret that now because I see it wasn't going as well as I thought it was. Admittedly, I didn't follow how successful the initiative was, only that it was aiming to do good for consumers, and that it was taking proper steps legally to get there, and it was going through all of the right channels. And now today I watched a video from the guy that's spearheading this. His name is Ross. He posted a video called The End of Stop Killing Games, where he's giving an update on where everything's at and how it's kind of at the finish line here with a lot of failure to show for it, with only a few other chances to fight back. Now, before getting into the weeds on the topic, I want to get this in the beginning because I imagine the vast majority of people won't watch the whole thing. I'm putting a link to the full video on Stop Killing Games, as well as a link to where you go to help support the Stop Killing Games initiative, because there's only a little bit of time left for the most important parts of it now that it's at the end. So if you know what the movement is and want to support it but didn't know where, the resources are in the description, or if you want to get it right from like the source, I have a link to his video. But I want to go into it myself here because it is a topic that I do feel very strongly about. But for those that don't know anything about Stop Killing Games, I'm going to let him explain it in his own words, so that way you can get an actual, correct, informed explanation of what the initiative is. And the reason I say it like that, kind of like fucking all, pinky out, snooty, is because a lot of people don't even really know what this is because of people like Pirate Software completely misrepresenting what the initiative was.
As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers.
I'll pause right there. The simplest bare bones birthday suit butt-ass naked explanation for what this is. Stop destroying things that people have paid money to own.
I mean, I don't think he could break it out any further than that. I mean, out of all this, if you're just now tuning in, or if you end up getting to this far in the video, you enjoyed the entire ride. Keep that in mind. This is about them getting rid of things that you have already bought, and taking it away from.
I think that is a very understandable, very reasonable take, very agreeable. Now, I want to quickly jump to a different spot in this video because I think it's important to have this in the beginning because it's something a lot of people have heard that comes from someone that is just wrong about it. It's the Pirate Software portion. Ross is addressing the video Pirate Software made many months ago. Ross even says that he didn't plan on doing that because he didn't want to be seen as using this for drama farming, because it would start to make the movement look less of like a legitimate initiative and more of just like drama slop content type thing. But he finally starts talking about Pirate Software here because it's at the end of the life cycle of this initiative and it's not looking promising, so he's willing to do anything to try and set the record straight and hopefully start getting more momentum back to the movement, because the damage Pirate Software did to it through his video was substantial.
This video came out right as we were building momentum, then except for one...
We covered that.
But the developer did.
So the main thing is we want to see if Moist is
that is included in all of this, but that's not like what the whole movement is about. And for some reason, Pirate Software is stun-locked on that, like fixated, as if that is the actual like meat and potatoes of Stop Killing Games. They need to be more specific in their language about it being single-player, always online connectivity games, when that's just not what it's about. Like, they're not being specific about that because that is not what they are specifically targeting. It is about the whole practice of destroying games that consumers have already purchased and having no end-of-life plans for games that are being sunset. So, for example, The Crew.
Even it's just, even the concept of it should leave people in question. It should have you taking it back and sitting back in your chair like, man, you really released a live service game or a game that has internet connectivity and you had no end-of-life plan for it. So you really didn't give a fuck about what the consumer cared about. So in a lot of ways, this should throw up more red flags. Out of this whole thing, we should have more red flags for the entire industry and how they look as us as consumers than anything else. If there's anything that you took away, you should say, after this, you should say, you know what, Steele? I got you can't trust these companies, bro. Unless, again, you have companies like Microsoft, like Xbox, who continuously try to iterate, hey, this is about ownership of games. Hey, this is about having access to your library, about things that you own. Again, there's a bigger conversation to be had there. And again, and like I mentioned earlier, I don't think that they're going to be the ones to do it perfectly either.
The Crew is an example everyone is going to reference and talk about because Ubisoft is still currently in a lawsuit battling against it for what happened with this game. I've yapped about it quite a bit, so I'm not just going to regurgitate that. I'm sure a lot of you already know the story about it. But basically, you buy The Crew, Ubisoft pulls the plug on the servers, you can't play The Crew anymore, now it's just an old wet dream of what once was. And they are facing a lawsuit, and while this is in the umbrella of Stop Killing Games, it is not the only thing Stop Killing Games is referencing when it comes to this practice. Pirate Software is so hung up on it being single-player games that people lose access to, when that is a component of it, but not the entire focus.
Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring public out there.
Rebalancing the entire half.
Even like a talking point from anyone besides Pirate Software. I don't know where he pieced this puzzle together. Like I don't get it. Like if I'm gonna try and like really reach here and give like a charitable explanation for this take, maybe he's extrapolating based on the idea that if publishers have to have end-of-life plans for their games, that includes MMOs, where once the game is getting sunset, you're pulling the plug on it, you would then need to turn the game over to the community in a playable state, an accessible state, like give the code to them. Thus, it turned it into a single-player experience, so the onus would be on the developers to rebalance their game to be a single-player experience for them. I guess.
Yeah,
I have no idea. That still just doesn't.
And again, it's like even that concept is asinine because they're just saying to leave it in an accessible, playable state. You don't have to go in and rejigger, rework, redo anything. Just let me be able to play the game as is. Maybe we figure out a way to do second and third party servers and then go from there. We don't need anything from you except access to the game. I need to be able to play it locally. Point blank, period. If I go peer to peer from there,
doesn't make any sense, but maybe that's the tree he's barking up with that thought process. I really don't know, because Stop Killing Games at no point ever says any of these multiplayer games need to be converted to single player. That really is outlandish. And the more I think about it, like the more nonsensical it becomes, because even in Pirate Software's hypothetical fanfic there, why would the developers need to rebalance the game? They would just turn over the code to the community and just it'd be in that state. They're no longer responsible for balancing the game. That's the whole point. They're not indefinitely supporting it. They would just be responsible of leaving the game in an accessible state to the community while they would shut down the servers on their end. Like they wouldn't need to go back through with a whole development team and like, tweak the game to be single player compatible. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like I really do not understand that one. But apparently a lot of people latched onto that talking point from Pirate Software as something that Stop Killing Games was asking for and how unreasonable it was. Which, if that's what Stop Killing Games was asking for, it would be unreasonable. But that's not what it's asking for.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online content.
It's almost
explicitly mentions single-player always online games or anything like that. And for some reason, instead of following the breadcrumbs that would naturally lead him to the conclusion of, oh, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe, because it's absent here, that's not what this is actually about. Instead, he uses it as a criticism against the Stop Killing Games initiative entirely, saying it's just too vague, it's way too vague. The reason it is not explicitly stated there is because that is not what the whole initiative is about. It is not specifically targeting that thing that you keep saying that it is. I don't know how that never clicked.
But those were his streams with a smaller audience.
Off the platform in the future.
What is he
doing this? The problem.
Ago were from his stream. When he took more time to watch it and digest it, he still came back in that video misrepresenting it. Like, it never dawned on him. Like, on stream, he could write it off as like, oh, he didn't grasp it in the moment, maybe later on he did. Well, then he made the video where he still was talking about things that are just not what Stop Killing Games was about, and this was the one that really blew up and really started to kind of dismantle the Stop Killing Games momentum.
If we don't
Lost for Words says, great stream still. This needs more eyes on it. The Stop Killing Games initiative is very simple. I think Pirate Software was willfully misrepresented this. I want to own the games that I pay for. I mean, it's literally, it's again, per my understanding, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to make sure to, again, I was going to watch this stuff regardless, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to tune into it, because that's just something that I do personally. If I'm not very aware about something, or if I have questions about something, or if it doesn't make sense to me, I want to consume content to help me form an opinion on it, right? And so far from what I have observed here, I just see somebody in Pirate who is not willing to have a conversation at bare minimum. You're just writing it off as stupid. And when you do that, people are going to come back and critique you in a way that you are not going to like. It may keep you up at night, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're so strong in your thought process that this doesn't bother you. Now, I don't think that anybody should be attacking the man personally or going to his home. Now, again, I think the pirate did attack old dude personally, saying, I mean, and he didn't attack him personally outside of calling him stupid and saying it's idiotic and everything else that he said. You know what I mean? So there is that aspect of it, and that dude didn't, and Accursed, he didn't do any of that, right? He was just like, hey, this is my point. I'm trying to focus on my point. I'm willing to talk about it further. I've talked about this with other people. Pirate, knowing that he has the platform that he does, he has the viewers that he does, I think that this just would have been such a prime opportunity, even if he still came off disconnected. And maybe that's something that he's fearful of, that he doesn't want more people to see through him, and maybe take the side of somebody else's opinion. But again, then what's the point of conversation? If you just want to be in your own bubble and think how you feel or how you see things is right, then I can see somebody just saying, oh, I'm not willing to have a conversation.
Don't like the idea of live service games as a whole. I get it. Don't play live service.
Or against them being
consumers into thinking that what they're buying is a product as opposed to a license to a product, which is a totally separate thing. And then he criticizes Stop Killing Games for not being specific about that thing that he is bringing up, as opposed to what Stop Killing Games is talking about. So he's using that against them for some reason. And then Ross goes into like the license talk.
Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason. That sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms.
Yeah, that's asinine. Blizzard reserves the right to terminate this agreement at any time for any reason or for no reason, with or without notice to you. Shouldn't that be a problem? If any company in their EULA, they said, hey, we reserve the right to terminate this shit whenever we feel like. We don't give a fuck. We don't care what you bought. We don't care what you did. We don't care the time. We just, whatever. We won't even tell you why. Don't even ask the question. Why would you ask questions? Just accept the fact that you don't have ownership no more, or that you don't have access no more. Like, and you expect for people to be okay with that, or for this not to be a conversation piece? Crazy.
Are so hostile to consumers and the medium that they should be taken off the table entirely. This needs regulation. Forget what you pay. Games do neither of those.
He's exactly right. That is a huge problem. Now, Pirate Software is correct here about these companies that will mislead consumers through this fraudulent advertising on what you're actually buying, because in a lot of cases, you don't own any of the shit that you are buying. It is pretty much a rental. You get a permission slip to access the content. That is,
and that's my thing. If you're getting a rental regardless, then why do people have an issue with Game Pass? That's giving you an option to still buy the game regardless, that you still technically don't have full ownership for. So if you don't have full ownership regardless, then why is Game Pass the problem? Matter of fact, Game Pass gives me an avenue. I don't own it. Guess what? I'm not going to worry about owning it then. I'm going to play the experience for what it is, for what you have given to me, and I will move on. I can tell y'all, as a consumer, that is how I typically move. So a lot of this stuff would not really impact me like that unless I wanted to come back at a later time and replay those games, which I think two things can be true. I can not be the consumer who would really be affected by this because I play games in the moment, right? Now, there games that supposedly that I can go back to that I've missed. Yeah, that is 100% an option, and it should be an option. But just because I play my games today and I'm not going to replay them in the future doesn't mean that I don't think for the people that do, because obviously there's quite a bit of people who do that, who revisit games. Doesn't mean that I can't stand for that. I believe that we should have full ownership. Point blank, period. It has to, or you need to give me better understanding up front, not through a EULA, not through reading all these pages. I shouldn't have to call my lawyer up or an attorney or whatever the case and be like, yo, I need you to read through these documents before I play this game, just to make sure I'm not getting screwed over.
Is an issue, and not making it abundantly clear to consumers that that is what you are buying is a problem. And so too,
MF Gray says car dealership comes to take your car back after you paid it off for a reason or no reason. And that's the extreme portion because you're getting your physical content, but even in gaming for your physical content, it could be the exact same thing. If you had a physical version of that game, we could just pull it away from you whenever we want. So we don't need a reason. Oh, there was an issue with your specific year of vehicle, but you know what? Instead of trying to find a way to compensate you so that you can get a reliable vehicle, we're just going to take it away. You know what? Hey, matter of fact, bring it in. We're going to fix it, but then we're going to tell you we can't fix it, and we're just going to keep it. It's like, well, like, dog, if I would have known this from the jump, I wouldn't have bought this shit. Again, I think that's a bad consumer practice.
Two is the actual agreements, as Ross demonstrates with Blizzard, where it says they can just completely terminate it for no reason at all. It really does go against the basic idea of commerce entirely. Video games are in a totally different ballgame when it comes to that, because half the time you don't realize that you're just buying an admission ticket to a game. You're not actually buying the game. You also don't know how long that's going to last. Again, to go back to Concord, that shit lasted less than a fucking rainstorm, basically. Like, there is just so many problems. So I don't know why Pirate Software would be so harsh on Stop Killing Games for not addressing specific things that he himself is bringing up or making up in regards to it. It just doesn't compute. It really is a video that did significant damage to an actually positive initiative that aimed to help consumers in the video games.
Which is crazy that his video would actually do any damage if, and again, I mean, it's probably because there's people that support the creator more than anything else. So they're going to take the creator at face value of what they're saying. And when you follow it up by, oh, this is stupid, I'm not willing to have the conversation because it's stupid. Then at that point, I mean, I guess I can see how it can be detrimental to somebody, although I would be hopeful that there would be more people who are like, I don't know, that doesn't quite sound right to me, you know?
Space, all based on his complete misrepresentation of it, which was a complete mess.
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no! He wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever. He was literally watching the video earlier where it says it won't do that in big letters. That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers from going there, even when we spell it out.
That's the last clip I want to show from this section on the Pirate Software video, but it's a very important one because this is something a lot of people also think the Stop Killing Games initiative is about, where developers, publishers will have to support their games forever. Like, until the fucking heat death of the universe, they'll have to support these games under the initiative. When that is not the case. It is very simply asking that when the game has reached the end of its life cycle, the publishers, developers don't want to work on it any longer, to turn it over to the community to still be in a playable, accessible state so the product can still exist. There is some more nuance, obviously, to how that works, given, like, publisher developer licensing and a lot of like the code, the binary, that kind of thing. There is a lot at play under the hood there, of course, but it is something that Stop Killing Games isn't naive to, and it is something that is talked about. But I'm not going to dive too deep into it. I encourage you to check more in on it. But this whole belief that it is about endlessly supporting a live service game, even when it makes no sense to do so and it's beyond dead and in the dirt, is ridiculous, because that is not what it is asking for. And a lot of people think that it is. It's not. Pirate Software got that wrong as well. Anyway, I'll stop yapping about it, but as mentioned in the beginning, most of Stop Killing Games hasn't been successful in getting change. And Ross has dedicated so much of his life to this, and it's clearly taken a big toll. Now he's doing everything he can for this last-ditch push to try and help. And there are two big things coming up that can do so. And it's what I linked at the very beginning of the at the very beginning of the video about the resources in the description. It's in regards to this.
One is for the UK to sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government response has been a mess by every definition. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so I think it could change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures from citizens of EU countries, and we've only made it just under halfway. What a lot of people don't realize is that in the EU especially, it's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction, is that the vast majority of games with an online requirement say they can be terminated at any time for any reason. Or Blizzard likes to say any or no reason. But according to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms in consumer contracts. So if that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void.
He goes on to explain.
This turns into a whole consumer law, consumer practice type of thing. And again, I do think that that's something that we got to continue to consider as far as that goes. So Stop Killing Games, the initiative, man, I can't. So, hey, we went from 546 to 551,000. It's doing something. There's about a month until this is put to end. I would like to see this to end up succeeding, and if it does end up succeeding, I'll talk about it, man. This is something that me and Pong are probably going to continue to touch on, hint on Living Split Screen, again, every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, and 3 p.m. UK time. So definitely check us out there. But game preservation is something that I think we all should continue to look at. And if not for anything, just for us, for our rights as a consumer. There's no reason why I should be buying something and not have ownership of that thing without it being deliberately stated to me that that's what is happening. And again, from a lot that we're finding out, especially through this, because again, this is me really like my first time diving into it and providing a real input outside of us having our own conversation and just saying, hey, we need to find out a way for us to have ownership and to have rights to the things that we buy. I think if anything, if it does end up succeeding, it should hopefully it opens up an avenue for others to take into consideration. But this is something that, again, this needs to be something that is happening in America, in the USA too, you know? And it's kind of crazy that it's not, that enough people aren't willing to speak up on that. And again, as the dude mentioned in the beginning as well, it is hard to get a mass amount of people to care about something when there's also so many other real world things that are happening. But again, when you have people who don't quite understand or aren't willing to have a conversation and completely block you out, it doesn't help the conversation piece at the end of the day. Because again, it's not like you're offering a counter to what do you think is going to be the best option versus me offering, versus in this situation, offering to say, hey, for the future, this is how we would like things to be done, or at least be looked at or be considered. And again, this isn't the end all to be all, right? He never said that, oh, this is exactly how it needs to happen. All he was essentially getting to is that this needs to be looked at. Legislation needs to look at it. We need to have people in power who understand consumer rights and consumer law. And if that's not what we're going to have, then we're going to continue to have people who buck against the system or fight back and say, yo, y'all don't give a fuck about it. So why does it matter? I'm going to do whatever I need to do in the best of my ability for my rights, for me to have access to the things that I bought. Point blank, period. So I think it's a dope conversation, man, regardless. Lost for Words says, I have no issues with Game Pass. It's made clear that it's a rental subscription service. 100%. It's a rental subscription service that still gives you access to buy your game. Now, I would just like to have ownership of that game moving forward. Complete ownership, not questionable ownership. Bold, what's going on, Bold? Appreciate you coming through. Hey, we're talking about the whole Stop Killing Games initiative, something that, game preservation, something that we've talked about quite frequently on the channel ourselves when we get into it about our digital libraries and the digital future and everything. And it's going to be an ongoing conversation, right? I don't think even if this initiative doesn't work, that we should stop talking about it. We should continue to bring it up. We should continue to say, hey, there's issues here that need to be looked at, and I as a consumer feel like I'm being violated in some ways. So there's that, man. Other than that, I mean, that's essentially it. I was going to get into some things about Mecha Break. It's my most anticipated multiplayer game of the year. I don't know if I want to put that as part of that or a part of this, or just wrap it up on this, and maybe just do that on the back end and just kind of upload those videos. And that might be just what I end up doing. Just kind of going through, because the one thing that I'm going to do is at least go through and look at each individual mech, kind of have that and kind of go from there. I might just do that as part of its own part of its own stream as well, because Mecha Break comes out in 4 days. It comes out on the 1st of July, and again, it is my most anticipated multiplayer game of the year, outside of Gears of War Reloaded, or Gears Reloaded, I should say. And I want more people to get their eyes on it. Again, made by Amazing Season. This is a dev coming out of China, making a mecha-based fantasy game. Team here, like a hero-based mecha fantasy style game that I think has a lot of potential. And I think what I'll do is I'll kind of end this video with this here. Ladies and gentlemen, You have to decide what you feel is right for you. Hopefully this gave you, if you didn't know what the whole Stop Killing Games thing was, hopefully this gave you a little bit more clarity, and we had some good conversation with it as well. But other than that, you can find me, Steel Rain, that T is a 7 everywhere. Google's the easiest place to type that information in. Other than that, I do frequent the streets of X, otherwise known as Twitter, although it's not as toxic for me as it is for everybody else. And additionally, the Xbox ecosystem, just because it works so well between the PC and the console itself. Other than that, follow me on all those social places. Also, I have my own personal YouTube channel that I'll probably more than likely upload this to as well. I'm gonna go from there. I'll probably remove the little break that I had to take there, handle some things behind the scenes, and go from there. Or maybe I'll just upload it raw. We shall see. But nonetheless, I want to thank everybody for coming out, joining the stream, getting a little bit more of that, that split screen content, that live, raw, and uncut, as we like to do in this golden age of gaming. And just be on the lookout for more, man. I'll probably try to do more of these, stop thinking about them so much, and just put up some content and kind of go from there, or just do a stream or so. But this has been your Lunch with Steel. I clipped out some good portions, hopefully. So I'm gonna try to get those uploaded as well, schedule them out, have them going for over the next couple of weeks. And then the same thing with the show. I think I got a little bit of a process. Got to figure out what I need to do to get my Stream Deck back active, because for whatever reason it lights up, it says Stream Deck but won't turn on. It's so stupid, man. We spend money on stuff, and again, like, why am I buying hardware that for whatever reason I can't access now because I can't hard reset it for some reason? I think that's dumb as hell to me, but whatever. Something else hopefully I can figure out before the show. But with that said, much love to y'all. Again, Living Split Screen, if you're checking it out here, every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. UK time. If you're checking it out on my channel, again, as I said, come check us out on a Saturday morning if you're looking for a gaming conversationalist podcast that discusses everything in the gaming industry. We take that RTS approach. That just means we pull ourselves out of the world, look at the darker crevices of that map, pull our resources together so we can not only build up our own foundation, but also the foundation for those potential 2 to 3 billion gamers that are out there. With that, y'all stay easy. Much love and peace out.